Hey guys, welcome to Pocket Saga. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Ash and May finally confess their feelings? Part 2. Final. This story is advancing through the ages by the respected author Sam Swordsman 123. Make sure to show some love for their work. Before starting, if you are interested in Pokemon fanfictions, you can consider subscribing this channel and like this video. That keeps me motivated to upload more. Now let's dive in. Professor Oak's car sped toward Saffron. It took him several hours to travel along the long freeway, up the mountains and finally to it. Tracy was with him in the passenger side seat. Behind them, Viridian's officer Jenny drove her motorcycle as well. After a long time, they finally made it to Saffron City. They'd woken up in the morning yesterday and found Ash's home reduced to rubble and Jenny unconscious outside. Then they'd heard an emergency special report saying that there had been attack on Saffron, as well as in several other cities like Celadon and Vermilion. Pallet Town had spared, at least aside from Ash's house. Oak only hoped that everything would be okay back at the lab. He'd had Bulbasaur on high alert as it was now the official Pokemon leader at the lab and often settled disputes between grass and water Pokemon. Even though it was still in its earliest form, the professor felt it was strong enough. At least he hoped so. But he had to try and help Ash. Whatever had been done to the boy and his friends, he was certain that they had not attacked Saffron intentionally. Ash would never do that. His car moved through Saffron. It broke the old professor's heart to see the damage to the many buildings. He came to the police station, which miraculously hadn't been damaged. He parked outside and got out of the car, heading inside with Tracy by his side. Viridian Jenny led them inside and found her look-alike cousin at the front desk. "Oh Jenny. Hey, what brings you here all the way from Viridian?" Saffron Jenny asked. "I need you to release the trainers that were responsible for attacking here, Jenny," Viridian Jenny told her cousin. "What? Cousin, you can't be serious. They have committed high crimes. We can't just let them go." "Officer Jenny," Professor Oak started. "Yes?" both of them asked. "I know Ash Ketchum and all his friends personally. They would never do this willingly. They were all abducted from Ash's house just a couple nights ago. I was there," Viridian Jenny said. "I'm sorry, but I saw them and so did many other citizens. They were wearing Team Rocket uniforms and had their Pokemon attack the city," Jenny said. "Unless something with real proof comes out, those kids will be put in jail for the rest of their lives." The Saffron Hospital was filled with people who'd suffered wounds during the attack. In one of them was a certain gym leader that had a faithful ghost Pokemon standing, or rather, floating by her side, watching over her along with her parents. Her gray eyes opened. "Haunter." The ghost Pokemon grinned as his companion awakened from her slumber. "Haunter," Sabrina mumbled and sat up. "Sabrina, oh, honey, you're awake," her mother said. "We were worried when Haunter led us here," her father said. "I'm sorry. Didn't mean to make you worry again," Sabrina told her parents. They had spent the last 5 years rebuilding their relationship after so long. It felt good to have such loving parents that had never given up on her. Then she remembered. "Ash? What happened to Ash?" she asked. "He and all his accomplices that attacked Saffron were put in jail," her mother said sadly. "Can't believe they would do something like this," her father added. Sabrina shook her head. "They didn't. I felt it in them. They were hypnotized." "What?" her father exclaimed. "I need to go and help them," Sabrina said as she pulled herself out of the hospital bed. She flinched in pain at her wounds. "Careful, Sabrina. You're still hurt," her mother said, putting her hands on her shoulders. The psychic gym leader glared at her, her eyes slightly glowing dangerously. "Sabrina. Your mother is only trying to help you," her father said. Sabrina's gaze softened. "Sorry, mother." Even after these past 5 years, she still occasionally nearly used her psychic powers on them unintentionally when they annoyed her. Sabrina limped forward. She had to get to Ash and help him and his friends out. It had been because of him that she'd been brought out of the darkness she'd trapped herself in by obsessing over her psychic training and refusing to make friends. Now it was her turn to save him now. Back at the police station, Jenny of Saffron still refused to let Ash and his friends go without any real proof that they hadn't done these things of their own free will. "Jenny, you better leave. This is my station. Come back if you have proof." Jenny of Viridian and Professor Oak both gritted their teeth while Tracy had a worried expression. "Can I at least see my friends?" he asked. Sorry, but they've been given the highest security orders. No visitors, Saffron Jenny said. Tracy looked down. What was he going to do? His friends were in a lot of trouble right now. If he didn't figure something out soon, they could take the fall for something he knew they wouldn't do. Suddenly the door to the police station opened and a trio of people and a floating Honda entered, led by a dark-haired woman. Tracy recognized her as the local gym leader Sabrina. She looked worse for wear. "Aw Sabrina, I'm glad to see you, Officer Jenny. Do you have Ash Ketchum and his friends in custody?" Sabrina asked. "Yes, they're all in a cell right now and will be put on trial for." "Release them," Sabrina ordered. They were under hypnosis. Saffron Jenny was silent. "Are you certain?" Sabrina nodded. "I'll show you." Her eyes lit up as her psychic powers activated and she linked her mind with Jenny's. Images from her memories went into Jenny's, the images of the power of hypnosis from the hypno affecting Ash and his friends. Jenny's eyes widened as she saw it with her own eyes. "All right, that's probably proof enough for me. I'll call the DA." She got on her phone and after about 2 minutes of explaining hung up. "All right, the attorney is dropping the charges. But I can't promise they'll be welcomed by the community. They did cause a lot of destruction here," Saffron Jenny said. She led them down the basement where the cells were located. Ash looked up and relief fell on his face at seeing Professor Oak. "Professor Oak!" he shouted aloud. "Pika! Pika! Pikachu!" exclaimed. "Everything's gonna be okay, Ash," Professor Oak said before looking around. "Where's your mother?" "She and May and Max's parents are still being held by Team Rocket," Brock said. "Oh dear," Professor Oak said. "We'll have to get them back then." "That's what we plan to do," Ash said. "Good, I think your spirit would be a great asset on the Pokemon police force," Viridian Jenny said. "I guess with everything that's going on, I'll be taking you up on your offer," Ash said. She smiled then watched as her cousin unlocked the cells and let her prisoners out. "Aw, good to be out of that cell," May said. "I need a bath," Misty said. "And I need a change of clothes," Dawn said as she looked at the Team Rocket uniform she was still wearing. That went for most of the others as well, and all their clothes had been buried in the rubble of Ash's house. Ash had never really been one to care much about clothes or hair, thinking it a girl thing, but even he didn't want to stay in this outfit forever. "We'll get new clothes, and then we're gonna go after Team Rocket," he said. "Yeah." His friends raised their fists. "Look out, Team Rocket, we're gonna get you," Max said. Now that they were out of jail, Ash and his friends headed to the Saffron Mall, which had been slightly scorched from the attack but was mostly intact and operational. Some stores inside were closed for repairs, but the clothing store was fully operational. The cashier at the front register looked up at them and smiled for an instant. "Ah, good morning, we." She stopped, her smile vanishing as she saw them. Her expression turned to one of fear, shock, and anger. "You," she pointed at them. "You're the ones that were on TV and arrested." Ash and the others didn't respond, many of them looking down. Even though they hadn't any of that of their own free will, they still felt the guilt of the deeds. It wasn't their fault. Both Officer Jennys were behind them along with Tracy and Professor Oak. The Saffron Jenny spoke. "They were hypnotized, Sabrina proved it," Jenny said. All right then," the cashier said, looking skeptical. "Well, let's get out of these Team Rocket uniforms," Ash said. They headed through the clothing aisles. Ash got himself a new blue jacket and a white and red hat with a blue Pokeball design in the center, his Unova outfit. Max found a green shirt like his old one, but darker, gray pants and black sneakers. Brock got himself his usual combination of colors of orange and green. An orange jacket over a dark brown shirt, green jeans, and blue shoes. In the woman's aisle, Misty, May, and Dawn all took their time trying to find new everyday clothes to replace their regular ones as well. I think I might like something blue," Misty said. "That would suit me as a water Pokemon trainer, I think." She looked through the outfits and found a white shirt with blue raindrop patterns on it, cyan shorts and dark blue sneakers. "Now this is an outfit a water-type trainer can be proud of," Misty said with a smile as she looked at herself in the mirror. May found a red tank top, white mini shorts with black ends that was similar to her old outfit when she'd first traveled with Ash in. It was a bit more revealing though as it showed off the shoulders and her chest as well. To top it off she needed something to replace her bandana. Spotting a red ribbon like her old one, she took it and wrapped it around her head. Last was Dawn, who got a pink vest over a black shirt and a longer pink skirt, while leaving her hair down. All three girls emerged from their changing room. "Oh Dawn, you look so cute," May said. "Aw thanks May, you too," Dawn said. "Hey, about me?" Misty asked. "Oh, you look fine too, Misty," May said. As they looked into each other's eyes, both blushed as they had a good idea what the other was thinking. "Well, let's see whose outfit Ash likes better, shall we?" Misty asked. May nodded. They made their way to the register, where the cashier glared at them but accepted their cash for the outfits nonetheless as Jenny watched. The boys were already with her. May and Misty both saw Ash, whose eyes widened as he looked at them, and Dawn as well. May couldn't tell which one he was specifically looking at since all of them were coming from the same direction. "So, what do you think, Ash?" Misty said once they approached. "I thought I'd try a blue outfit to show off my love for water Pokemon." Well, it looks nice. Suits you," Ash said. May smiled hopefully with a blush. "That's a lot like your old outfit, May. It looks good," Brock said. May would have preferred Ash's opinion, but she appreciated Brock's input as well. "Thank you, Brock," she said. This reminded her of when she, Ash, Max, and Brock had all gone to that palace with traditional costumes and she dressed as a princess. Brock had been the one to compliment her outfit then as well. "I agree. I think red suits you better than green," Ash said, "but you look cute in just about anything." May's heart did a skip at that. He thought she was cute. Misty looked down a little bit. "Hey now, no flirting on my watch," Viridian Jenny said. "You two still aren't able to legally date." May's smile faded. It had only been less than a week since she'd reunited with Ash, but it felt longer with all that had gone on. "Did I just say that aloud?" Ash asked, embarrassed. "You sure did," Max said teasingly. Ash rubbed his fingers a bit nervously. He felt a sudden urge to run away but took a few breaths. Girls really weren't one of his areas of expertise. "Pikachu." Pikachu smiled at its trainer. "Hey, what about me?" Dawn asked, a bit annoyed as she hadn't gotten any attention from her new outfit. "Okay, just relax. All of you are really pretty," Brock said. "But Officer Jenny is the prettiest here, I'd say." He went and grabbed Jenny's hand, only to be shot with poison jab by Krogunk, and Max then helped to drag him off. "Well, some things never change," Misty said as she glared at Brock. "Well, we got out of these uniforms. Now we have to stop Giovanni, Phantom, and Team Rocket," Ash said. "Right," Brock said as he got up. "But, how do we do that?" "I don't know," Ash said. "Well, we got to get our parents back first," Max said. "I'm worried about Mom and Dad." May nodded and walked over, putting a hand on her brother's shoulder. "No need to worry, you guys. We'll figure something out," Dawn said. "We always do," Misty said. Tracy stepped forward. "I wasn't there at the house to help you guys out, but I want to fight by your side as well. As do I. Team Rocket can't be allowed to succeed in conquering the world. Therefore, I propose we create a Pokemon Trainer Alliance," Professor Oak said. "A Pokemon Trainer Alliance?" Brock repeated. "Yes, Team Rocket has attacked other areas around our world and we will need the assistance of every trainer willing to help out and stop them," Professor Oak said. "Well, I think it would be a good idea to host another of my Pokemon talk shows." After a phone call to the Saffron News requesting to be put on set immediately, a squad of TV reporters showed up just 5 minutes later. "Hello everyone. I usually perform these talk shows to educate young aspiring trainers about Pokemon. But today I have an emergency announcement in regards to what has been happening across various regions. As you know, the nefarious Team Rocket have been attacking our cities. They are a threat to people and Pokemon everywhere. We must stop them. What I am asking you all to do could very well be dangerous, but if we want to keep our Pokemon safe, we must take action. I'm proposing we create a Pokemon Trainer Alliance. Everyone please report to the nearest gym leader to you in whichever region you live in if you are willing to fight for the world we share with Pokemon and do not wish for it to be taken over by a group of evil doers like Team Rocket." The message was heard by thousands of trainers across the world. Well, hopefully this will get a lot of trainers all over the world to be gathered together and be able to repel any other attacks by Team Rocket, Professor Oak said. "Professor, what about those young trainers there behind you?" The reporter asked, pointing to Ash and his friends who were standing behind Professor Oak. I would like to assure you that these young trainers are good people. They were hypnotized by Team Rocket and are not responsible for the destruction that their Pokémon committed, Professor Oak said. Please do not blame them or anyone else that was hypnotized during any attacks. The ones who freely commit these crimes are the true bad guys. Now if you'll excuse me, I must go to the Pokémon Center. The kids followed the professor toward the Pokémon Center. As they did so though, I better get back to Viridian City, they need me there, Viridian Jenny said. And Ash, my offer about you joining the police still stands. Ash smiled. I'll keep it in mind. May looked at him. If when Jenny was gone, especially the one that seemed hellbent on keeping them apart, then maybe she could. Professor Oak, cousin, I hope you'll take care of these kids and keep from getting into trouble. Especially those two, she pointed to Ash and May. May hissed. This was getting so annoying. So she was just a couple years younger than Ash, she knew what she felt for him. If she had to wait 7 months she would, but Misty was around as well. If she didn't at least try she might lose him to her, she had to do something. But there was also her parents and Ash's mom as well. Both them and Max were worried. With all due respect, Officer Jenny, May is only 2.5 years younger than Ash. The law is the law, Viridian Jenny said. A 13-year-old and 15-year-old can't get together. I don't make the rules, okay, I just enforce them. Sorry cousin, but with all that's going I think I need to focus on enforcing the law, Saffron Jenny said. I'm going back to the station after this. Then it will have to be up to you and the young men there, Professor, Jenny said to Oak, Brock, and Tracy. Me? Brock exclaimed. Sure, anything for you, Officer Jenny? I don't know, May sighed while Ash facepalmed. Brock would do just about anything for Jenny. The two officers left to return to their stations. Now only Professor Oak, Brock, and Tracy were the adults in their party. May looked at Ash, maybe now would be the time to talk. She wasn't sure if Professor Oak would allow it, but she had to try. There weren't a whole lot of trainers in the Pokémon Center. Many had fled following the attack. They looked at Ash and the others with a mixture of expressions, some frowning, others sympathetic. They didn't talk to anyone there as they walked. Most of the group was tired from the whole ordeal. They could only wait until Professor Oak devised a plan and the alliance was put together. They set themselves into their rooms, May, Dawn and Misty in one, and the 4 boys another. I need a walk, Ash said. Pikachu said, looking at his trainer. Worried about your mom, huh, Ash? Max asked. Ash nodded. I'm worried about mine too, and Dad, Max went on. We'll get them back, Brock said. Yeah. Professor Oak will come up with something in no time, I'm sure, Tracy said. Ash nodded. Yeah. I hope so. He and Pikachu walked out into the hallway of the bedrooms. As they did, Ash saw a welcome face. May was making her way out toward the lobby of the center. Ash watched her moving for a second, then called. Hey May. She looked over her shoulder. Oh hey Ash, she said. Where are you going? Ash asked. For a walk, I need to clear my head, she said. Yeah, I know. I was about to go outside too, Ash said. May blushed. Would you mind walking with me? I need to talk to you. Ash nodded. Yeah, I think we need to talk. Pikachu? Pikachu asked, gesturing with his head in the other direction. Yeah, I think we might need some alone time, buddy. Go on, Ash said. Pikachu scurried off in the other direction to give the two some privacy. Ash and May headed toward the front of the center. They were silent. May felt the words on her tongue, but they didn't seem to want to come out. Sneaking off somewhere, are you two? A familiar voice said behind them. Both teenagers felt chills go down their spines as they looked back and saw Professor Oak. Hi Professor, we were just going to go out for a walk, and May started speaking while fidgeting with her fingers. May, you don't need to worry about me trying to keep you two apart, Professor Oak said. I say you two would make a lovely couple. Couple? Ash repeated. Ash, you've never been one for romance, have you? Professor Oak said. Ash shook his head. No, at least, I'm no expert on it. That was the truth. Ash had never really been concerned with romance. He hardly ever thought of girls, with very few exceptions. His primary interest had always been collecting badges and training Pokémon. Well, I say you two should have a walk. Of course, if you get in trouble I can't bail you out, Oak said, waving his finger. So we can go? May asked. Yes, love is a subject of a great many poems. Perhaps I will make after you too, Oak smiled. May smiled while Ash just looked confused. Come on, Ash, she said, her nervousness turning to excitement. They walked outside and found a spot that was mostly deserted. Night had fallen over Saffron and the city was lit up brightly. May turned and looked at him. Ash, I know you know this already, but... Ash smiled lightly at her. Yeah, Misty said it too. You both like me. Yeah. I've liked you for a long time. You taught me how to love Pokemon back when we first met and I got my Torchic. Seeing how much you cared for Pikachu back then, that was when it all changed for me. You remember how I said I used to hate Pokemon? Yeah, Ash said, recalling the memory and blushing. Can I tell you something? She nodded with a nervous chuckle. Back when we first met, well, when we introduced ourselves, I guess, since we met when Pikachu was throwing electricity everywhere. And my bike was destroyed. May laughed. They both laughed as they recalled meeting each other when Pikachu had been ill and throwing electricity everywhere. They hadn't had time for a proper introduction until May came in. Remember how you came in and caused a plant to fall, then hid it behind your back? Ash asked. Yeah. I wanted to try and avoid looking like a clumsy girl when I introduced myself to you. When I got a good look at you, I thought you were kind of handsome, May said. Ash blushed. Really? She nodded and fidgeted with her fingers. You know, when I saw you and we properly introduced ourselves, I thought it was kinda cute how you hid the plant behind your back. Like I wouldn't notice that. May giggled again. Yeah, even you're not that dense. There was a moment of silence. So you think I'm cute? Ash nodded. Yeah. I never really tried to ask you out or anything cause I was focused on the gyms in Hoenn. And you were 10 back then. But we've been through so much together and I came to care about you a lot. May blushed. Ash. Though, I'm not sure about the whole crush thing. I've never exactly understood romance, Ash said. May nodded. I know. But I know this as well. I don't care that you're just 2 years older than me. I know how I feel about you, Ash. You've always been there for me, taught me when I needed guidance, protected me when I was in danger, and supported me through our journeys. I love you. May, Ash said, looking at her. She suddenly threw her arms around him in a tight hug. Ash slowly returned the gesture. For a moment they stayed like that, then broke apart. Both of them felt an urge to kiss then and there but pulled away. Well, it feels good to finally be able to get that off my chest, May said. Yeah, Ash said. I don't know about us. But maybe once Team Rocket is defeated then. I'll think about it. May had hoped that he might accept her here and now, but that might have been a little much. And he was right, they did have other concerns that were more important right now. Okay, she said. They headed back to the Pokemon Center to get some rest for the next day, unsure of what it would bring. Giovanni sat in his chair. He'd seen the news. Professor Oak was calling for a Pokemon Trainer Alliance. Now he would have to rethink his plan. He still had Butch's Hypno, but could it really control all the people who stood against him? Maybe not. He would just have to inspire enough fear in the trainers to make them lose their hope. The attack on Saffron had made many afraid. If not for Sabrina's testimony, Ash Ketchum and all his friends that had briefly worked for Giovanni would still be viewed as criminals. Giovanni would need his strongest agents to inspire the greatest amount of fear. However, Butch and Cassidy always seemed to fail, the same as Jesse and James whenever it came to Ash Ketchum. That boy was always disrupting the operations of Team Rocket. He was a skilled trainer with powerful Pokemon. But Giovanni had his own powerful Pokemon that he'd acquired over the years. This was a task he would have to see to personally. Time to stop relying on his minions to do his dirty work. He'd enter the fight himself, soon. If you want something right, you must do it yourself. But first, maybe I can have an eye put in the alliance. He got up and walked out of his office. At the Saffron Pokemon Center, Ash woke up in the room he was sharing with Brock, Max, and Tracy. They got up and headed down to the center lobby for breakfast and were surprised to a lot of trainers there standing in front of Professor Oak and Sabrina. Ash. A voice called. Ash looked at the source of the voice and was surprised to see an old friend. Like Ash, he had on a hat and a Pikachu on his shoulder. Richie. Ash exclaimed. Been a long time, haven't seen you since the Johto Silver Conference, Richie said. I heard you went to Hoenn and Sinnoh. Yeah, Ash said. Hey Ash, I see you changed your wardrobe, a female voice said. Ash gaped as he found himself looking at a person who looked a lot like him, except for wearing the clothes that he had back when he'd first started his journey. Though there was one big difference. The person had blue hair. Ash remembered her. Duplica. Looking around, Ash saw quite a few familiar faces. AJ, his sandshrew which had evolved to a sandslash, samurai whom he'd met in Viridian Forest, Giselle and Joe from Pokemon Tech, even some who weren't trainers were here. It was like a gathering of old acquaintances that Ash had met here in Kanto. Ash. I heard you were with my father when he disappeared, another female voice asked. A girl with brown hair fashioned in a ponytail over her shoulder came forward. Who are you? Ash asked, at a loss. Rebecca, Brock exclaimed. Who? Ash asked. Remember, she's Anthony's daughter. The guy you left your primate with, Misty said. Oh, right. Ash looked down as he recalled how he'd left primate behind and forgotten about it. You are still as lovely as I remember though, Rebecca, Brock said as he took the girl's hand. Oh, thank you, Rebecca said with a blush, and thanks for helping me with my father all those years ago. But where is he now? Do you know? Brock stiffened. My memories are a little hazy, everything happened so fast when we were freed from the hypnosis. But I think he and his friends were captured by Team Rocket. Rebecca looked worried and put her hands to her mouth. Oh no, Dad. Brock put his hands on her shoulders. Fear not, Rebecca, we will get your father back for you again, ah. Crow. Crowgunk stood over Brock. Oh Brock, are you okay? Rebecca asked as he was dragged away from her. Just fine, it's nothing that'll keep me down forever, Brock said. Don't you worry though, Rebecca, we'll get your dad back, Misty said. They have my mom too, Ash said, and our parents as well, Max said. Well, don't worry. Now that all these trainers have come here, Professor Oak will come up with a plan, Tracy said. That's right. In fact, I already have something in mind, Professor Oak said. Okay everyone, listen up. Our first priority is to find those that are still being held prisoner by Team Rocket and forced by hypnosis to fight for them. Ash, can you or your friends tell me where it was that Team Rocket took you? It looked like an old prison, May said. Yeah, we didn't much of a good look at it on the outside though. At least not that we can remember since we were hypnotized, Ash said. An old prison, There's one in the mountains not far from here. It went out of service years ago, Professor Oak said. Alright, I want someone to send a flying Pokemon out to search for that prison and see if it is where the hostages are being kept. I'd be happy to do that. A man with blue hair stepped forward. Ash recognized him, but he wasn't a friend. Damien. It's you, he exclaimed, much like he had the last time they'd crossed paths. Well, been a long time. How's my old Charmander? Damien asked with a wicked smirk. Ash snarled at him. If you must know, it evolved into a Charmeleon and a Charizard. Really? I'm surprised. But then, I wasn't a very good trainer back then, Damien said. A horrible one to be honest. Ash's expression softened. Back when he'd first met, this man had been the original owner of his Charizard, who had been a Charmander at the time. He'd abandoned Charmander since it was weak, and Ash, Brock, and Misty had saved it. They all looked at him in surprise as he spoke the words. Had he changed? I don't expect you three to forgive me, but our region is at stake and we all have to band together, Damien said. He's right, Ash, Brock said. Ash nodded. They had to fight Team Rocket now, and if Damien helped them save everyone, Ash would consider forgiving him. All right. Golbat, come on out. Damien threw one of his Pokeballs into the air. A blue bat Pokemon with purple wings appeared. I want you to find a prison in the mountains, Damien told his Pokemon while pointing with his finger toward his Pokemon. Golbat. Goal. It began flying. Thanks, Damien, Ash said, trying to be civil. No problem, Damien said. I have to use the bathroom. Be right back. Damien headed into the restroom at the center, then reached into his pocket, pulling out a walkie-talkie. Hello, Giovanni, sir. As you ordered, I have joined the Alliance as your spy. Good. What news? They're attempting to rescue hostages right now, Damien told him. Well, we'll just have to move them then, Giovanni's voice said. Giovanni had just gotten the news from Damien. They would be moving the hostages. Delia Ketchum, Norman and Caroline, as well as the useless former trio from Team Rocket. To Ash Ketchum, those three fools were probably the main Team Rocket. But Giovanni had to admit, Ash Ketchum certainly was an annoyance. He'd managed to escape Giovanni's grasp, and now he and his friends were part of a trainer alliance that was looking to take him down. But he had his own new allies as well, in the form of those who'd been released from prison here and in Johto. If he recalled correctly, they all had a score to settle with Ash Ketchum, who'd been at the center of their arrests. The Team Rocket leader made a call on the intercom of his base. "Sir," a grunt's voice called. "Prepare to transfer the hostages to our other hideout. Also, have Butch and Cassidy prepared to hypnotize those fighting Pokemon trainers we captured after our other hypnotized trainers escaped." "Yes, sir." In the prison where Ash and his friends had once been held, the formerly main Team Rocket trio of Jesse, James, and Meowth sat in their cell miserably. All their dreams seemingly crushed. "All this time we worked so hard, and here is where we end up," Jesse said. "Everything seems like a big waste," James agreed. Meowth was actually crying. "I was supposed to be the top cat and replace the boss's stupid Persian, but I don't think that's ever gonna happen now. I'm in a cage like an animal." "Hey, would you keep it down in there?" someone from across the prison said. It was Norman in his cell with Caroline. "You two have caused nothing but trouble for our May ever since you met her," Caroline said. "And Ash and the rest of his friends," Delia agreed as she glared down at their cell. "When have you ever been able to beat my son? He always gets you in the end. If you ask me, you would be better off doing real honest work rather than chasing him all the time." The trio looked at the two women, or their cells, for a moment. They went over all their failures, battling Ash with various Pokemon like their original Arbok and Weezing, then Victreebel, Wobbuffet, Seviper, Cacnea, Dustox, Chimecho, Mime Jr., and Yanmega. They'd gotten a lot of Pokemon from their travels to capture Pikachu. But one thing never changed in all those years. They would always end up with nothing but getting blasted off high in the sky. After 5 years you'd think they would have succeeded. "We never seem to win. Maybe we're just not cut out to be Team Rocket material," Jesse said. James recalled how only a couple months ago they had considered quitting Team Rocket, tired of their failures, but they'd gotten back together to continue. Maybe it was time to revisit that idea. James had been the one most against it since he didn't have anything else but Team Rocket. His family was rich, to be sure, but he also had to deal with that terrible Jezebel whom he'd been engaged to since childhood. Still, he could maybe find something else. He was a grown man now, and he'd done a lot over the years with all his brief jobs to save money for all the Team Rocket equipment. "Well, maybe we should consider going for the winning side," James said. "Remember the twerp's first time in the Indigo League? I said we were much better at selling than stealing?" "Yes, maybe we could open a restaurant or sales market," Jesse said. "And Meowth, you could probably get a Pokemon talk show." The sad cat Pokemon looked up. "Really? Yes, who ever heard of a talking Meowth?" Jesse said. "Well, with how many regions we've been through, probably a lot by now," Meowth grinned. They laughed. Still, many more would probably find Meowth's speaking ability phenomenal. Just one problem. "If we want to do that though, we'll have to get out of here," Jesse said. Meowth looked at the bars he'd been leaning on. He'd been so depressed he'd forgotten about his claws, which he'd used occasionally to open locks. He made a wicked grin. "I think I can handle that." He climbed up so that his pointer claw could reach the inside of the lock. "Almost got it," he said. But at that instant, the door down the hallway opened and a pair of Rocket henchmen stepped into view. Meowth pulled his claw out, hoping they didn't notice anything. "We're moving, all of you." They approached the trio's cell first. "Maybe we should just leave them. If the Alliance finds us, we can let them rot in jail." "What, you'll leave us here to starve or be arrested?" James exclaimed. "What I'd give for Wobbuffet to come out right now," Jesse said. Wobbuffet, a blue Pokemon, suddenly appeared behind the Team Rocket grunts. "What the? Wobbuffet," Jesse exclaimed. "Get us out of here now." "Wobba. What?" one of the Rocket grunts exclaimed. "That's one of their Pokemon," the other said. "Get it." Meowth leapt back onto the bars and scrambled to finish picking the lock. The two Rocket grunts drew their Pokeballs as Wobbuffet just stood there. "Coffin. Go, Ekans. Go, Ekans," Jesse repeated in surprise. "Coffin," James said in a similar tone. The two poison Pokemon, one resembling a purple rattlesnake and the other a rock with a skull on its bottom, appeared. At that moment though, Meowth managed to open the cell. He went for the two Pokemon with his Fury swipes, giving them deep scratches. They collapsed immediately. Ha! I may have been a loser Pokemon for a while, but I did gain enough experience to one-hit KO the both of you, Meowth taunted. Jesse and James charged the grunts and soon had them knocked out with bumps on their heads and put them in the cell they'd been in. Now let's make our escape, Jesse said. Wobbuffet. Oh right, better get the rest of our Pokemon back first, Jesse said. Hey, what about us? Caroline shouted. You just gonna leave us here? Don't bother dear, they're crooks, Norman said. Maybe we should let them out as well, Jesse, James said. No way, more of the bosses, I mean Giovanni's men could be here any minute. We need to get out. Just cause we quit Team Rocket doesn't we quit being bad. Jesse, I know it's a work in progress, but we've always been bad at being bad, James said. Meowth shrugged. I'm not sure, but maybe if we do the twerp a favor he'll do us. Then if he actually takes down the boss we can get a pardon. Oh, so we'll be free. Well, when you put it that way I'm in, Jesse said. With Meowth's claws they got the three adults free from their cells. Well, I guess we should get out of here, Jesse said. Unfortunately that was not going to be easy. Because in another part of the prison a group of criminals were getting ready for their boss's latest plan. Butch, Cassidy, and their new allies, both willing and unwilling. Iron Masked Marauder, Annie, Oakley, and Phantom. As well as Anthony and his group of fighting Pokemon trainers, Ash's old Primeape was among the battalion, along with various others. Alright, here's the plan. Our spy in the Alliance has made contact with Ash Ketchum and will lead him here. Where will we either take him and his friends back, or destroy them once and for all? He has gotten in all our ways too many times, Cassidy said. Above them, Damien's Golbat spotted the prison. It already knew the location of course, but this was just for show. It flew back to the center in Saffron City. Damien's Golbat flew back to Saffron City where its trainer was waiting in the lobby with many of the others. Ash and his friends sat by the TV, watching events that were taking place across various regions. The Team Rocket Force in Goldenrod City of Johto have successfully been driven out thanks to the brave trainers of this city and gym leader Whitney. A familiar red head was visible on screen with a Miltank at her side. I remember her, she was tough, Ash said. Took 3 of your Pokemon to bring down her Miltank, and that wasn't even an official gym battle, Misty said. Hey, I still managed to win most of my Johto battles fair and square, Ash said. Yeah, but you were so much of a novice back when I first met you, Misty said. Hey, leave him alone, Misty, May said. We were all novices at some point. Not me. I actually studied Pokemon in school unlike you sis, Max said. Oh shut up you little know-it-all, May shouted at her brother. Okay. Let's try and get along, we don't have time for sibling quarrels right now, Brock said before he spotted someone familiar coming. Hey guys. Damien shouted. Damien, Ash said looking. My Golbat said it found the location of that prison Team Rocket was at. Ah excellent. Professor Oak said. Now we can go and rescue your mother and May and Max's parents as well. But how are we going to get there? I could fly on my Charizard, Ash said. I have Togekiss but I don't think it's strong enough to carry me, Dawn said. I don't think any of us have flying Pokemon that are strong enough to carry us, Max said. I think we can use some police choppers, Professor Oak said. Actually, I have a suggestion, came a new voice. Everyone looked and saw a woman with dark hair approaching them, a haunter floating by her side. Sabrina, Ash exclaimed. I think I can have my Kadabra teleport us to the prison, Sabrina said. But there is a maximum I can take, only 15. They looked around, counted themselves up. Ash, Pikachu, Misty, Brock, Tracy, Professor Oak, May, Max, Dawn, and Piplup, and that was just everyone Ash had ever traveled with. The whole room was full of other trainers on standby, but many noticed Sabrina enter the room and got up. Sabrina, what's going on? Richie asked. We're working on a plan to rescue some of Team Rocket's hostages, the gym leader said. That means my father, Rebecca said. I want to help. I'm sure I could disguise myself and get them out with a Team Rocket uniform, Duplica said. I wouldn't mind another go at Team Rocket for insulting my gym years ago, AJ stated. Or trespassing on our school, Giselle stated. Thank you for all your bravery, but we can only take a total of 15 people. Ash's group makes counting the Pokemon they keep outside their Pokeballs. And it will be me, Kadabra, and Haunter as well will make 13, so we can only have 2 more at maximum. Damien stepped forward. I'd like to volunteer to go with them. Everyone looked at him in surprise while Pikachu narrowed its eyes, as did Brock. I want to fight those evil doers who would enslave Pokemon, Damien stated. I was a pretty bad trainer years ago, and I want to find atonement. Ash looked at him. All right, I guess. Pikachu sounded uncertain. Brock hummed lowly. Well, that makes 14, we can take 1 more, Sabrina said. I'm going. Rebecca said. My father was captured and I want to help save him. Rebecca, you're not a trainer, Brock said. Please let me get your father back for you. The girl shook her head. No, Brock. I appreciate the offer, but I can't simply sit back and rely on you. Besides, I've been taking self-defense classes with fighting Pokemon for a long time. Please let me come, Sabrina. Sabrina looked at the girl. You have spirit. Very well then. She turned to the rest of the trainers there. We'll be counting on all of you here to help protect this city from any more attacks by Team Rocket. They all nodded. Richie, Duplica, AJ, Giselle, Samurai, and all the others. Let's save our parents, Max said. Ash and May nodded and Sabrina let her Kadabra out. What way was the prison, Damien? My Golbat headed in the direction of the forest to the north, Damien said. Sabrina nodded. I think I know the one. Kadabra, teleport us all there. Kadab. Its eyes lit up and Ash's friends, Professor Oak, Sabrina and all their Pokemon vanished from the center. Butch, Cassidy, Phantom, Annie, Oakley and Iron Masked Marauder were as ready as they could be. Along with Anthony and his fighting Pokemon students, and some Team Rocket grunts that had just arrived. They would take Ash Ketchum back and he would aid them in their conquest of the world. Things weren't going well right now since there had been Pokemon Trainer Alliance created and the trainers were fighting back across the regions. They'd heard Giovanni was working on a new weapon to crush the resistance with Professor Namba. But that didn't matter to Phantom. For he had other plans. He looked on the roof which had a ladder going up it. On top of the roof was a few helicopters left. All right, they'll most likely come by either helicopter or Pokemon, Cassidy said. Watch the sky. The villains all turned their eyes skyward. It was a clear day, not a cold in the sky. They waited, keeping their eyes upward when suddenly. Pikachu Thunderbolt, Ash called. The villains had been focused on the sky. They were shocked when they saw Ash Ketchum, with all of his friends from Kanto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh, Professor Oak, Sabrina, a Kadabra, Haunter, and Damien there with his Golbat. Pikachu began to spark dangerously, and many of the villains prepared for impact, not knowing how many of them would get hit with that all too familiar attack many of them had been hit with at least once before. Golbat used Supersonic on Pikachu, Damien said. Golbat. Golbat screeched. The ears of Pikachu, Ash and many of the others filled with loud screeching. Pikachu failed to release the Thunderbolt to hit any of the enemies. Now's our chance, Butch. Cassidy stated. Hypno. Time to put those kids back under our control again, Butch said. Hypno. The yellow Pokemon raised its arm which was boosted by the machine. Oh no you don't, Sabrina said, able to use her psychic powers to ward off the Supersonic. Haunt used Nightshade on that Hypno. Focus on its arm. Haunter. Haunt. The purple gas Pokemon had been just out of range of the Supersonic. It fired the Nightshade at the yellow psychic Pokemon, hitting its arm where the machine was. The small machine exploded and Hypno was left without its extreme power. Kadabra used Psychic on Golbat. Kadabra's eyes lit and Golbat was thrown to the ground. Brock rounded on Damien. I had a feeling we couldn't trust you. You got that right, Damien said, dropping the facade. You really think I would change? Being evil with Pokemon is just the best. You trainers always waste your time with the boring part to raise them. You're a disgrace, Damien, Brock said as he drew a Pokeball to fight. All of the others were ready for battle as well, drawing their Pokeballs. They'd nearly been hypnotized again, but now the device on Hypno's arm was destroyed, and with it, Team Rocket's hold on the fighting Pokemon trainers. Anthony and his students looked around. "Daddy!" Rebecca exclaimed as she ran to her father. "Rebecca! What are you doing here?" he asked. "Saving you," she said. "That's my girl," Anthony said. "Well, I think I better help out here. What do you guys say?" "Yes, master," his karate students said, and so the fight began. With Anthony's students free though thanks to Sabrina, the tide was even. Brock took on Damien, while May, Misty, and Max took on Annie, Oakley, and Iron Masked Marauder with their Pokémon. Professor Oak and Sabrina held back the Rocket Grunts with Dragonite, Haunter, and Kababra with the aid of Anthony and his group. Ash meanwhile was focused on Butch and Cassidy, who had Hypno and Raticate out. Seeing Pikachu was outnumbered, Ash called out Snorlax. There was one person not fighting, who had retreated out of sight. Phantom watched from the woods just a short distance away, hoping for the chance. Attacks of nearly every kind flew everywhere, like an all-out war. Fire, water, poison, psychic, ghost, electric, fighting-type punches and kicks. For a moment it seemed unclear who would win. Even with Anthony's team they were still outnumbered. Then the door to the prison opened. "Well, looks like we made it just in time," Norman said as he with his wife and Delia at his side. "Dad," May shouted in relief. "Mom," Max and Ash said. The two mothers smiled at their sons. Then another familiar trio squeezed through the door behind the three parents. "Prepare for trouble, we're here to back the good guys up. Make it double, cause the bad guys always lose, time to do a little good now that we're not on Team Rocket. Surrender now or prepare to fight. Meowth, that's right." "Wobbuffet, Jesse, how'd you escape?" Cassidy exclaimed. "Oh, just my annoying but helpful Wobbuffet," Jesse said. "Now we're gonna help the twerp bring you down." "Huh?" Ash said. "You decided to work with the law finally, huh? I knew we're a failure," Cassidy said. "You're mine, Cassidy," Jesse said, "and I'll take Butch," James said. "Caroline, Delia, you two run for cover and I'll help the kids out," Norman said, drawing one of his Pokeballs that he'd retrieved while escaping. "Right," the two women said. They ran as the battles continued. Phantom watched, waiting for the chance to take his bait to reclaim what he saw as rightfully his. Then a new idea occurred to him. A few minutes passed with many Pokémon being worn out, but with the addition Norman and his slacking as well as Jesse, James and Meowth, they had victory all but guaranteed. Delia and Caroline hid in bushes near the prison along with Rebecca. Even though she was a martial artist now she knew it was better to stay out of the way of Pokémon battles, she wouldn't interfere unless she had to. Soon all the members of Team Rocket were defeated. Damien, Oakley, Ashley, Iron Masked Marauder and the many grunts all lay with wounds they'd received after their Pokémon had gone down. The heroes' Pokémon were all battered from the battles as well. But they stood proud and victorious for a moment. The battle seemed over. Ash looked at all his friends with a smile. May looked at him with a blush, and he looked back at her. "Ash!" A familiar voice called. Ash looked and saw his mother coming out of her hiding place. "Mom!" He ran over and hugged her. Max, May, Caroline followed Delia going to her own children. "Mom!" May said like Ash before hugging her mother. She was joined by Max who had just finished applying a potion to his Ralts. "Mom, I was so worried about you," Max said. "I'm okay, Max," Caroline said as the three embraced. Norman joined the family hug as well. Days ago May had been mad at him for not letting her be with Ash, but now she was happy to see him. "Dad, It's okay, May. I know," Norman said. "Ash is a remarkable young man. If there's any I would approve of for you to date it would probably be him. But only when you're 14. May pouted. That was still several months away. Ah well, she didn't want Ash to get in trouble. She'd come this far and confessed her feelings. She smiled at her father, glad to finally be back with him. Rebecca now came out of her hiding place and hugged her own father while Brock, Misty, Tracy, Professor Oak and Sabrina watched the families reunite. It was a heartwarming scene that made them smile. Then a familiar voice broke the silence. "Parasect, Spore," Phantom commanded. The giant mushroom Pokémon released its attack into the air. It hit all the humans and Pokémon, instantly putting them to sleep. The only exceptions was Primeape, who got hit but remained awake thanks to its insomnia ability that prevented sleep effects. It looked around in astonishment as Phantom walked forward. Recognizing a new foe, The pig monkey readied itself to battle. Pinsir, come out and take a hostage. The long-horned Pokemon emerged from its ball and placed its horns over the nearest unconscious person. Misty. Primeape froze. You stay right there, or that little red head gets it. Primeape looked at the pirate in fury, but relented. Primeape called out his Feraligatr as well. Take the girl over there, Phantom ordered. Feraligatr did as it was bid, grabbing May, who lay unconscious, while Phantom took Ash, hoisting the boy over his shoulder. Then they climbed the ladder to the choppers, taking the two teenagers with them. Phantom recalled Pinsir from the roof into its Pokeball. Primeape rushed to follow but wasn't quick enough as the propeller spun and the chopper rose. It watched in dismay as its old trainer was flown away. Pikachu opened his eyes and saw everyone lying around unconscious. At least most of them. The only exception was Primeape. The pig monkey Pokemon stood over Anthony and was prodding his trainer with his foot. It began coming back to Pikachu. They'd beaten all those other Team Rocket members, some of whom they'd encountered years ago in Johto. Then suddenly they'd been reunited with Ash's mom and May and Max's parents. Then Phantom had suddenly attacked them with Spore. Pikachu looked around, having a bad feeling. It was confirmed when he saw no sign of Ash. Pikachu, he screamed. Looking around, he counted off his remaining allies. Everyone else was here except for May. Pikachu clenched his teeth and held back tears. Two of his friends were taken. Pikachu. A thunderbolt traveled from Pikachu and hit everyone lying down. They screamed and immediately got up. Ah! Pikachu, what was that for? Misty screamed. That's a shocker, Max said. Ow, Brock said. Is everyone okay? Norman asked. Max, May, are you? Hey, where's May? Everyone looked around and Ash isn't here either, Delia stated. Where could they have gone off to? Professor Oak asked. Primeape. Primeape growled at Pikachu, since it had been hit with the thunderbolt too. Pikachu. Pikachu apologize. Pika. Shaw. Primeape narrowed its eyes but understood Pikachu did it to wake everyone up. Primeape, we were all hid by sleep powder, but that wouldn't have worked on you, Anthony said. Do you know what happened to Ash and that other girl? Primeape. It nodded. Tracing an image in the dirt with a stick, it made a picture of a certain pirate's face. Phantom again, Brock said. He must have put us to sleep, then grabbed Ash and May. But why? Max said, now deeply worried. I don't know. Though from what I remember he blamed them for stopping him from getting the sea crown, Brock said. Delia shook and cried. That's the man who beat up Ash earlier. Oh, I can't bear to think of him doing that again. Caroline took a deep breath, and May, oh my baby. We have to get them back somehow, Tracy said. What do we do, Professor Oak? I don't know. I have no way of knowing where Phantom might have taken them, Professor Oak said. Well, I think I know, Jessie said. Everyone looked at her. Phantom wanted that sea crown treasure thing or whatever it was. I'll bet he's after it again. Phantom's copter headed toward Vermilion City. He'd prepared this copter for his escape a couple hours ago. Once he put it on autopilot, he took the duct tape he'd packed and tied the kids up so they couldn't cause any trouble. Soon the brown eyes of Ash Ketchum woke up and he saw he was in a copter. Phantom sat in the pilot's seat, with May tied up next to him. Awake are you? The old pirate asked. Phantom, Ash exclaimed. He then remembered how the pirate had destroyed his home just a few days ago. Rage entered him and he glared with absolute hatred. You. He tried to move but found himself bound a lot thick sticky tape. He then looked back to see Phantom grab hold of May's neck as the girl still slept. I warn you, if you don't cooperate I will break her neck, Phantom promised. Ash's rage quickly was replaced with fear as he saw his friend, the girl he'd helped become a skilled coordinator and one of the people he cared most about, being threatened. Ash grit his teeth and relented. There are two types of men in this world of ours, those that win and those that lose, Phantom rambled. You may have won against me a year ago when you stole Manaphy, but this time I will have the sea crown. He'd reached Vermilion City where Ash had arrived back in Kanto a while ago. So much had happened in just a bit over a week. Several ships were head out to sea. Phantom got low above the ocean, and spotted a ship that was just big enough to land his chopper on and couldn't have too many people. He grinned and brought the chopper down on top of it. Then he ran outside and with a few threats and Pokemon threw off the rest of the people on board, taking over the ship. May opened her eyes as he was gone. She looked around her. Huh? Where am I, Ash? She said, noticing him behind her. Phantom took us, Ash said. May shivered. Looking outside, she saw they were on the roof of a small yacht. She tried to move, but her bonds wouldn't allow her. Ash, I'm scared, she said. Don't worry, we'll get out of this, Ash said confidently. His words soothed her somewhat. He was always there for her whenever she was down or in danger. I'll protect you, May, Ash promised. Those words caused her to blush furiously. Before she could reply though, the doors to the copter opened and she felt large strong hands grab her. She screamed as her archenemy heaved her out of the chopper. Ash. Let her go, Phantom, quiet boy. I'll be gentle with her as long as you don't give me any trouble. We men are the strong types, not the woman after all. But between the two of us you're the type to be crushed, Phantom said. Now, we're going on a trip to get the sea crown back. Ash gritted his teeth. How are you ever gonna find the sea crown? Manaphy had to lead us there. It's out in the middle of the ocean. You'll never find it. Maybe, but Manaphy has a special bond with you too. And the move heart swap, did it ever use it, either of you? Why yes. May answered truthfully. I think it did anyway. It switched Ash with Jackie in their bodies, and I did something to me when we were trapped in your safety tube waiting for Ash. But I knew he could save the temple. Just like he'll take you and Giovanni down. Ash remembered hearing May's words while he'd nearly drowned. They had given him the strength to finish his task and save the temple. She was so confident in him. Well, if he used heart swap on both of you, that's perfect, Phantom said. Then he can feel this. And he punched her hard. Giovanni was fuming. Butch, Cassidy, his spy Damien, and all the agents he'd recovered from the Johto prisons. They'd all been defeated and were likely going to be sent back to prison. This time he wasn't going to bail them out. Phantom had betrayed him as well and taken Ash Ketchum for himself. Giovanni growled. His Persian looked at him scared. It seems I will have to go to Plan B, Giovanni said. He picked up his phone. An image of Professor Namba soon appeared. Good afternoon, boss, Namba said. Is that other weapon you were developing ready? Giovanni asked. Yes, Namba stated. Good. With the hypnosis machine destroyed, we will now use that. Have the Pokemon put on board and prepare for launch. Okay. This one is gonna be one of the scarier chapters, I think, with quite a bit of blood. For a week Phantom sailed with his two prisoners. He kept them tied up where he could see them. Both Ash and May weren't in great shape. Their stomachs rumbled every so often. Phantom only let them eat twice a day if they were lucky. He took them to the bathroom nearby when they asked at least. But things would reach a low pretty soon. May woke up the morning of the 7th day with her head on Ash's shoulder. She blushed as she saw him asleep. Finally awake again, girl? Phantom asked. Good, 'cause I think we're getting close enough to the Sea Temple for me to enact my plan soon enough. He gave a wicked grin at her that sent a shiver down her spine. Something told her he planned to do something sinister to either her or Ash, or both. Far down below them, in the Temple of the Sea, its prince felt a familiar presence. Mama! Manaphy exclaimed. And Phantom turned back his attention back to the sea ahead. Just a little more, he thought. He drifted further ahead for a few more minutes, then finally put the boat in park. Its engine ceased. They now simply drifted as the waves ran them. There wasn't a sign of land in any direction. He didn't know, but he remembered this location of the ocean from his old ship's built-in map. Of course, the Sea Temple could move, so it could be anywhere. He'd start here though, and he'd never rest until he found it and got what belonged to him. Behind him, May struggled against the duct tape holding her in place. She'd tried this several times before when Phantom was asleep, but now that they were apparently reaching their destination, things were getting desperate. Ash had done the same and been kicked for it by Phantom. It was no good though, she wasn't strong enough to break the tape, and her Ash was still asleep. He'd always protected her, but right now there was nothing he could do. Pikachu was gone. Back with the others, and neither of them could reach their Pokeballs. She took a bit of comfort in the fact that Pokemon used less energy inside their Pokeballs, but she hoped they were all right in there and not too hungry. As he parked the boat, Phantom turned around and grinned at her. Now I can put my plan into motion, he said. He walked off down the boat's hallways. Ash suddenly began to stir next to May. May, are you okay? Ash asked in a concerned voice as he remembered their predicament. Yeah, but I'm scared, May said. Phantom says we're close to the place where the sea temple was before. He just went down the hallway. He said he's gonna put his plan into motion. Ash wanted to hold her hand, but he couldn't with the bindings holding both of them in place. We're gonna be okay, May, Ash said. Somehow. May blushed and smiled for a moment, but it soon faded. I hope so. If only her hero and crush could get himself free, then he could get his Charizard out and fly them back to the mainland. Ash looked around and remembering Phantom was somewhere else in the boat began to struggle again. May joined him, but of them brought their taped hands to their mouths, trying to use their teeth to get the tape off. But they'd need Phantom to be gone a long time for that to happen. He always had his Parasect put them to sleep with Spore when he slept. They managed to get the tape off a bit, but soon heavy footsteps told them Phantom was coming back. He carried a bucket filled with something red and it smelled like blood. May had only a moment to shiver before Phantom threw the contents at her, getting her orange shirt stained red, as well as some on her face. A bit hit Ash as well. Hey, what are you doing? Ash yelled angrily. I'm gonna take little May outside and we're gonna go fishing for Sharpedo. Phantom stated. They'll be attracted to the blood from the Remoraid guts I just put all over you. May was filled to the brim with both disgust and fear. She knew Remoraid and other fish Pokemon were sometimes hunted for food. She'd eaten them Remoraid salmon on a few occasions herself. But being covered in them made her feel disgusted. The fear came from the thought of being fed to hungry Sharpedo. She remembered encountering them before, and had been lucky to only have her swimsuit torn. Seeing her frightened expression, Phantom laughed. Don't worry, girl. I'm not gonna feed you to those Pokemon, maybe. I need you both alive to lure Manaphy to me. I just need you to be scared. He seized her by the collar and carried her off outside to the deck as she screamed. Ash struggled against his bonds. Phantom put May in a fishing net attached to a crane on the boat he'd stolen. He then dumped the contents of the bucket into the sea. Down below, Pokemon smelled the blood. May screamed again as she was lowered into the sea. Phantom laughed at the sight, taking satisfaction in tormenting her. He worked the controls of the fishing net and pulled her back up. May coughed as she emerged from the water and was reeled back in like a fishing lure. Soon the fins appeared and 4 Sharpedo appeared. Ah! May screamed. Ash! Somebody help! Phantom laughed. There are only 2 types of men in this world. Oh wait, you're a woman so you don't count for that. You women are all the same, weak, only good to cook, clean and bear children. May gritted her teeth. She struggled against her bonds desperately. To her surprise the tape came off. The water had weakened its stickiness. But her victory was short-lived as a Sharpedo leapt up from the water at her and narrowly missed the net. I wouldn't do anything like call a Pokemon to free you, Phantom said. You make one wrong move, I'll send you back down there. May grimaced. She didn't have any options right now, if only she had an opportunity of some sort. Mana. Mana. A familiar voice said. May felt her heart leapt at the voice. Manaphy, she exclaimed. The little blue water Pokemon splashed through the water. He looked up at May in concern. Mama. Phantom laughed again. Finally I have you again, Manaphy. Bad man. Manaphy said. That's right, bad man. Let Mama go. I'd be happy too, but only if you give me the power of the Sea Crown. Mana, give it to me, or I'll feed your Mama to those Sharpedo. Ash heard May scream outside and doubled his efforts. He had to save her. He gripped the tape with his teeth once again and pulled with his hands. He had to save his friend, the girl that had been his student, whom he'd helped grow into a near-top coordinator. He remembered all those times they'd shared together, like splitting the terracotta ribbon without even having to say a word about it. They'd just known. Her catching Pokemon like her Wurmple, Skitty, Bulbasaur. How he'd encouraged her and helped her through tough spots, and when she failed the first time he felt bad for not teaching her to battle properly. He wasn't gonna fail her this time. Come on, he thought. Gotta break free. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. Ash's arms glowed blue and his strength increased tenfold. He ripped the tape holding his arms apart. That hurt though. He gritted his teeth in pain, then looked at his arms which glowed for an instant longer. It had been brief, but he recognized this power. Aura. He'd used it once before at the Tree of Beginning. But it had been so long he'd thought maybe that had just been a one-time thing. Whatever the case, Now was not the time to dwell on that. He had to help May. Ash looked down at his legs, which were still bound by a long piece of tape. He took hold of the end with his now free hand and began tearing away at it. Faster, faster, he told himself, focusing into his arms, which suddenly glowed again and moved at an incredible speed. The tape unrolled bit by bit until it finally came off. Ash was free. He got up and reached for a pokeball on his belt. He then went out on deck where Phantom worked the controls for the fishing net he had put May in. Her eyes widened as she saw him. Ash. What? Phantom exclaimed in surprise. Sceptile get May to safety, Ash said, throwing his pokeball. His hoe and grass starter emerged from its ball and with a quick leaf blade cut the net before grabbing hold of it and getting it back on the boat. The net came undone and May was free. Are you okay, May? Ash asked. Yes, she said as she held back a sob and he helped her to her feet. You won't be for long, Phantom shouted as he charged at them, not even bothering to call upon a Pokemon of his own. Ash was seized by the throat and pushed against the wall of the boat. May screamed before turning angry. Hey, leave him alone, May said, and he kicked the pirate from behind, straight in the balls. Phantom groaned lowly in pain and released Ash. The raven-haired trainer seized on the opportunity to punch the pirate in the face with all his strength. The blow gave the old man a bloody nose. Ah! Why, you little brats? I'm gonna. Whatever he planned to do them now was drowned out as Sceptile grabbed hold of him and threw him into the ocean, where the Sharpedo were waiting hungrily. They swam towards him, smelling the blood from his nose. He screamed, bubbled pouring out of his mouth. He tried to swim upwards back to the boat but was nowhere near fast enough. The mouths of the shark Pokemon opened and he screamed as they tore at him. Ash held May, who whimpered. Suddenly Manaphy leapt onto the deck, looking at the human girl he'd imprinted on over a year ago. It's over for Phantom then, Ash stated. I'm glad he won't be after us anymore. But that was a violent end, May said. Glad it was him and not me though. Mama all right? Manaphy asked. Yes, I'm fine, Manaphy, May said as she looked down at the water Pokemon and picked him. Manaphy then turned to Ash. Papa all right? Ash and May's eyes both widened. Giovanni grinned at his new ultimate weapon. The battle rocket, a giant black rocket with red on the wings and at the top. The signature red R was visible as well in the middle. It was lined with rotating surfaces inside and several windows where Pokemon on board could launch their attacks as well. It also had built-in lasers and machine guns of its own operated by rocketmen. Excellent work, Professor Namba, Giovanni said. Thank you, sir, Namba said. He grinned. At his side stood 009, Domino, who gave a small but wicked smile. It's time we crush any opposition to our goals, Giovanni said. They boarded the new battle rocket, which fired its engines and rose into the sky. It didn't go into space, it soared quickly through the sky, faster than a jet plane could. Soon the battleship was joined by Team Rocket Combat Unit consisting of several choppers, all with machine guns of their own. They soared through the skies of Kanto and toward Saffron City, where Giovanni had had Ash and his friends attack. Now he would finish the job. Pika. Sparky, the Pikachu that belonged to Richie, perked up his ears from on his trainer's shoulder. You hear that? Duplica asked as they looked up from where she and Richie were standing in the streets. Richie listened. It sounded like an engine, or a lot of engines. Copters maybe? But there was something else. Something louder that had made it hard to hear the choppers. Then he looked into the night sky and saw many dark shapes, with lights on them that unmistakably marked them as aircraft. But there's so many of them all at once, and a much bigger one that was unmistakably a rocket ship. I have a bad feeling about this, Richie said. Pika, Sparky agreed, his ears drooping in fear. His bad feeling was soon confirmed as the aircraft began shooting, their machine guns letting out volleys of bullets, and from the rocket ship, powerful attacks like flamethrowers, hyper and solar beams, hydro pump, thunder, and others emerged. Voltorb, Electrode, Weezing and other Pokemon fell then exploded. Pokemon must have been on that rocket launching attacks from afar. Buildings began to crumble, burn, electrify and explode. If the damage caused by Ash and his friends while they were possessed had been bad, this was horrific. It all happened so far Richie had no time to react to mount a defense to help. Run! He yelled at Duplica. Zippo, come on out. He threw his Pokeball and out came his fully evolved Charizard that he'd nicknamed Zippo. "Ditto transform into that Charizard," Duplica said as she released her main transforming Pokemon. The little purple gel-like Pokemon emerged and immediately turned into a Charizard matching Zippo. Both Richie and Duplica got on their mounts and flew off. But the destruction had already spread far across the city. "What do we do?" Duplica asked. "Try to stop them," Richie said. "Come on, Zippo." The Charizard flew at the large rocket ship. That had be the lead one. If they could take that out. As soon as they got close enough though, a group of Golbat and Zubat were seen. They shot Air Slasher and Supersonic at the two flying trainers on their steeds. To make matters worse, there were also Magnemite and Magneton levitating above as well, sparkling electricity. They shot thunderbolts at the Charizard, who struggled to avoid the super effective attacks. Richie clutched his teeth. Retreat. He and Duplica flew back toward the Pokemon Center where many of the trainers had gathered. But to their horror, they saw a chopper directly above the center and a red and white Pokemon plummet toward it. The electrode exploded as it hit the medical center, reducing it to a pile of rubble. "No!" Richie screamed. Many trainers had been in there. Some had come out to help fight, but who knows who many were still in there with sick Pokemon. They could be hurt or worse. The rest of Saffron burned as Giovanni watched with an evil grin in his command deck. "Establish the radio connection," he ordered. Namba typed a few buttons. "Ready, all Kanto should hear it." Giovanni cleared his throat. "Attention all citizens and Pokemon. Saffron is finished, and all those who resist will suffer the same fate. Surrender, pledge loyalty to Team Rocket, or be destroyed." Many who heard that announcement chilled. They were truly up against a dangerous enemy. In a faraway land, a bipedal purple Pokemon wearing a cloak watched the city below from atop a building. His eyes were narrowed near constantly and he wore a deep frown. He had only 3 short fingers on his hand. The most powerful Pokemon in the world, Mewtwo. With his psychic powers he could sense the destruction even from far away. "It seems the balance of this world is shifting," the cloned Pokemon said. "My enemy is rising in power, and those that I can call friends are in danger. This is a human conflict, but it concerns Pokemon as well. Perhaps not cloned Pokemon as long as we remain in hiding." "Pika. Pika." A Pikachu with more blackened ears spoke up. Pikachu, a clone of Ash Ketchum's own Pikachu. By his side was his best friend, Meowth, the clone of the former Team Rocket Trio's Meowth. "You wish to help?" Mewtwo asked. "Pika?" Pikachu said with a nod. "Yeah." Meowth agreed. "We consider it with the others below," Mewtwo said. "They must have a say in this." They teleported into the building they stood on where Mewtwo had gathered his cloned Pokemon to be safe from humans. Now was the time to decide if the cloned Pokemon would partake in this conflict. Ash looked at Manaphy in shock. "You called me, Papa?" May was shocked to hear this as well. But now that she thought about it, Ash had been the only one Manaphy had been comfortable with besides her. She remembered how Ash had saved Manaphy by snatching him away from Phantom while engulfed in that golden light that allowed him to fly through and above water. May loved Ash. Mama loved Papa. The young Pokemon that was only a bit over a year old said. Ash looked at May, who blushed fiercely. "Yes, I do love you, Ash," May reminded him. "Papa loved Mama too," Manaphy said. Ash was silent for a while. "Papa and Mama swam through fish that marks love," Manaphy pressed. "Huh?" Ash was confused. "A Pokemon that marks love?" "Lovedisk," May said. "Remember we swam through a school of them with Manaphy before we got to the temple." "Lovedisk, oh yeah." Ash vaguely remembered a Pokédex entry saying that a couple who swam through a school of that Pokemon were destined to find love that would last for all time. As he recalled that, Ash once again remembered his times with May. How they'd eaten together alone at the Pokemon Center in Oldale Town, which he'd enjoyed. Also, like him, she enjoyed food tremendously and loved to travel and see new places. He recalled their shared contest in Terracotta Town when they'd split the ribbon tying. Ash had taken her from being a girl that hated Pokemon to a skilled coordinator that he could truly consider an equal in terms of skill. They'd even come with the idea to split the ribbon without even having to talk about it. And lastly, Ash recalled those countless times May had been in danger and needed saving. He hated when that happened, Even though it gave him some form of pride whenever he thought of how he always managed to save her. He couldn't stand the idea of leaving her alone. When she'd gone into the sea temple after Manaphy, he'd gone too, even though Elizabeth had told him to get in the submarine. Ash's heart beat rapidly as he realized how much she meant to him. Again he remembered how he seemed to get along better with her as well. Better than Misty for sure. He'd never really thought of any kind of girl he might marry someday, but if he did, he'd like it if they at least got along okay and could enjoy a decent meal together, as well as travel around a lot. That seemed like May for sure. May, I think I might like you too, Ash said. Ash, she said, her eyes seeming to glow with passion. May. Took you long enough. You're so dense, she said as she hugged him. Ash hugged her back, then they looked at each other. Then May realized something. We have to get back to the mainland and stop Team Rocket for good, she said. Yeah, Ash agreed. You know, it's funny. We've always said Team Rocket to mean Jesse, James and Meowth. Feels weird that it's not them anymore. Now it's Giovanni. Yeah. Doesn't matter though, we have to stop him and all his crooks. Come on, let's take this boat. They walked to the steering wheel, but looks like Phantom had the keys, Ash said, and he's dead. May finished. Those keys are probably at the bottom of the ocean or in a Sharpedo gut. Well, we could fly on Charizard, Ash suggested, drawing his flying fire Pokemon's Pokeball. Manaphy, help. Manaphy said as he waddled into the boat's interior. You can help us, Manaphy? May asked. Fi. He walked out and jumped back into the water, then resurfaced to look at them. Mama and Papa come with Manaphy, Manaphy said, waving from the water. Ash looked down at the ocean, thinking he knew what he meant. The sea temple? Fi. Manaphy nodded. We'll never be able to get down there before we run out of air, May said. Ash looked through the boat and found some breathing pieces that could be used to breathe underwater. Ash handed one to May and then put one on himself. They both then dove into the sea with their breathing pieces on. May took hold of Manaphy and grabbed Ash's hand. The Prince of the Sea swam to the bottom. He was faster and stronger now that he'd grown. After a time, the temple came into view as they passed many species of water Pokemon. They entered and soon emerged from the water, which didn't go through the whole temple. Ash climbed out and then helped May out just as he had when the temple had been sinking. You can be a real gentleman sometimes, May said with a blush. Ash chuckled. I probably need a lot more work though. May giggled with a nod. Yeah, well, you're good enough for me, I think. You're always there when I need you the most. Crown. Manaphy said as he jumped into May's arms. Slowly taking Ash's hand now that they were more or less together already, May carried Manaphy with her as Ash led them to the room where the sea crown lay. But they came to the room that could only be opened by the people of the water's mark. I've got my old bracelet, May said. She reached into her fanny pack and pulled out the mark. Pressing it to the stone, she opened the door. Then they were in the room with the sea crown, which was surrounded by a swirling sphere of water. Touch the stone, Papa and Mama, Manaphy said. May smiled as she realized her child had managed to expand his vocabulary a bit without her. Ash looked at him in curiosity, then to the sea crown. Both at same time, Manaphy instructed. They looked at each other, then after a brief nod, reached into the water at the same time and touched one of the large crystals that made up the crown. It glowed brightly like when Ash put the last crystal back in place after Phantom had tried to steal them. When the light faded, both Ash and May were glowing. Papa and Mama, King and Queen of the Sea, Manaphy said. They meant to be together. Ash and May looked at each other again. The love disc, now they were both King and Queen of the Sea. Did this really mean they were soulmates? Yes, May thought. He is the one. I'm sure of it. Ash, let's go defeat Giovanni and his crooks for good, May said. Okay, sounds good. But what are we gonna do after that? Ash asked. May sighed. I've waited this long for you. I can stand a few more months. I think I want to stay home for a while though. But promise me when I turn 14, we'll go on the journey together, just the two of us, as boyfriend and girlfriend. It's a deal. I've made up my mind between you and Misty, Ash said. I choose you, May. May giggled. Usually he always choose a Pokemon. And I promise something else as well. I'll never cheat on you like Drew did, Ash said. If I'm gonna be King of the Sea, you are my queen, now and always. She beamed. Alright, then I guess the queen has more thing to do before she returns to a society that keeps her from her king. May leaned forward and kissed Ash on the lips. He kissed back, then they both jumped into the water with May holding Manaphy again. And they shot through the sea, propelled by the light of the sea crown, heading to the mainland as a family. With the rays of light to fly them back, Ash and May headed back to Kanto. They were going fast, so at least they managed to get there before it was dark. They arrived in Vermilion City like they had just over a week ago when they first came back after finishing their journeys in Sinnoh and Johto respectively. They got in close to the shore and walked up the beach hand in hand, Manaphy in May's arms. Good to be back on dry land, Ash said. Yeah, May agreed. Mana. Manaphy exclaimed as he jumped out of his mother figure's arms and onto the beach. Land. Ash and May chuckled as they realized Manaphy hadn't been on land in over a year. They felt the power coursing through them fade as they got further away from the sea. So what do we do now, Ash? May asked once she picked Manaphy up again. Well, we were gone for a few days. We need to find out where the others went. Let's head to the Pokemon Center and call Professor Oak's lab, Ash said. They did so, finding the Vermilion Pokemon Center unusually crowded. Ash got a videophone and called the lab in Pallet Town. Someone did pick up, but it wasn't human. Bulbasaur. Ash's Bulbasaur exclaimed. Bulbasaur? Ash said in surprise. Wow, you're able to run a phone yourself? Bulbasaur raised a vine whip up and down as if to say more or less. There any sign of Professor Oak there? May asked. Bulbasaur, the bulb Pokemon, shook his head. Okay, well I hope everything's okay. You just hang in there and make sure everyone at the lab is okay, Ash said. Bulbasaur nodded. Ash hung up and looked at May. Well, do you know any other numbers that might help? She asked. Ash stroked his chin, trying to think. Maybe Brock's family in Pewter City or Misty's sisters in Cerulean City. Before they call either of those though, there was an image on the Pokemon Center TV. To their horror, Ash and May both saw Giovanni on it. All remaining cities are reminded to submit to Team Rocket rule. You will hand your Pokemon over to me or join Team Rocket and be able to keep them. If you do not, what happened to Saffron will befall other cities as well. The image then changed to a smoking pile of ruins. Saffron City had been destroyed. Ash and May's eyes widened in surprise and disbelief. They destroyed Saffron. How? May exclaimed. A huge battleship. A trainer in the center nearby said. Wait, Ash. The woman was several years older, but Ash recognized her blue hair and farm-like attire with the bandana. Laura, Ash exclaimed. Been a long time. Sure has, Laura Laramie said. I saw you on TV a week ago. You were possessed and forced to do the previous attack. Yeah, Ash admitted sadly. It wasn't your fault, Laura said, seeing his expression. I heard you went missing too. Are you all right? Yeah, Ash said. Do you know what happened to my friends and mom? Laura shook her head. I came here to try and help out defending my region with Rapidash, but it looks like a lot of Pokemon trainers are scared. Looking around, many trainers were looking at their Pokemon in concern. No doubt seeing the attack on Saffron had scared them all. Even Ash was shaken from seeing the damage done. What do we do, Ash? May asked. We can't just give up our Pokemon to be used by Team Rocket. Who knows how those crooks would treat them? Ash sighed. Jesse and James cared about their Pokemon, but I don't think all the rest of Team Rocket are the same. Destroying an entire city. They don't deserve another chance. They have no heart, and they have to be stopped. You're right about that, a voice said. Ash looked over his shoulder. Sabrina. The psychic Pokemon trainer's eyes were watering. By her side stood Anthony, Haunter, and Primeape. My parents were killed in the attack. Ash's mouth fell open. He stepped forward and hugged the gym leader who he'd once considered the meanest of them all. Oh, I'm sorry, Sabrina. I was looking for you ever since your friends returned and said you disappeared with my psychic powers, Sabrina said. But I couldn't sense you until just now, so I teleported to you with Anthony. The fighting-type trainer looked at Ash and then to Primeape. Well, you certainly were gone a long time, Ash. But I think Primeape still misses you. Ash looked at Primeape. Sorry for forgetting you, old friend. I was a pretty bad trainer sometimes, huh? Primeape shook his head and extended a fist in friendship. Ash smiled. Thanks Primeape. Welcome back to the team. He and Primeape bumped fists. Anthony then handed Ash Primeape's Pokeball. I can take you back to the rest of your friends, Sabrina said. Her eyes, though sad, glowed with her psychic powers. She teleported them all back to where she'd been before. It was a place Ash hadn't been in a long time. The Cerulean Gym. He saw Pikachu, Brock, Misty, her sisters, and the rest of his and May's friends and family, as well as Jessie, James, and Meowth. They were all safe, at least for the moment. Ash! Delia shouted in relief. May, Caroline exclaimed as well. Pika! Pi! Pikachu ran to his trainer and jumped into his arms. Good to see you too, buddy, Ash said before turning to his. Everyone okay? Yeah, for the moment, Brock said. But did you hear about Saffron? Ash nodded. I can't believe it, Sabrina sniffled. I was such a terrible daughter to my parents and now they're both gone. Our gym in Saffron was destroyed too, Rebecca said. It's all right, Rebecca, Anthony said as he walked over to his daughter and put a hand on her shoulder. We'll pull through. Brock did the same on the other shoulder. Yeah, home is where the heart is. And family is what matters most. As long as you have each other, you'll be fine. Rebecca smiled at him with a blush. Thanks, Brock. Are you okay, May? Norman asked his daughter as he walked up. Yes, May said. Max noticed the Pokemon in her arms. Is that Manaphy? Yeah, May said. Manaphy, meet your grandma and grandpa. Mana. The water type said. Oh, it's so cute, Misty's eldest sister Daisy said. Yeah, Dawn agreed. Too bad we'll have to give it up to Team Rocket, Violet said. What? Ash exclaimed. You saw what happened to Saffron, Lily said. You want that to happen to you too. Misty looked sad. I may not be a fan of taking the easy way like my sisters, but this is really bad, Ash. Ash looked around and saw all of his friends looked as though they'd lost hope. Guys, we can't just give up, Ash said. But if we fight back, they'll really hurt us, or worse, Daisy said. And if we give them our Pokemon, what do you think they'll do to them? Ash protested. We're Pokemon trainers. We live to battle and connect with our Pokemon. Becoming stronger together in battle, and closer as friends. We've been through ups and downs on all our journeys, but we've always pulled through, because we believe in each other. Easy for you to say, Jessie said suddenly, speaking for the first time since Ash arrived. You're always the one sending us blasting off. Yeah, we're just a bunch of failures, James said. Dreaming of stealing Pikachu from Ya and having all sorts of promotions and bonuses. But our only bonus was getting thrown into a cell. Hey, you guys never gave up either, Ash said. No matter how many times I sent you blasting off, you always got back up and came back for more, and I know you guys care about your Pokemon. Yes, but the boss doesn't, Meowth said. Well, maybe his Persian, but in the end, they're all just tools to him and he doesn't care about their well-being if they don't serve him. Daisy, Violet, and Lily looked down. We've never done any of those things. After getting beaten a bunch of times, we just gave up and never got back up and just started giving out badges instead of fighting trainers to let them really earn it. Yeah, we're nothing like you guys, Violet said. But don't you care about your Pokemon here? Ash asked. Lily nodded. Yeah, Dewgong, Gyarados, Starmie, all the others. I don't want to battle, but I don't want to give them to some evil crime lord either. It's not gonna be easy, Brock said. But if we don't stand up to evil, then who will? There will always be evil in the world. Whether it be in the past, present or future, Professor Oak said. Just like that Pokemon hunter and the Iron Masked Marauder we faced a few years ago, Ash. Ash looked at him, remembering the Iron Masked Marauder and saving Celebi from him back in Johto years ago. Then he remembered the friend that he'd made during that incident, Sam, who'd come into the future with Celebi. He also remembered Professor Oak had known Sam's name after they'd called him and told him about what happened with Celebi, who'd taken Sam back to his own time. But Professor Oak hadn't been there facing the Marauder with them. What are you talking about, Professor? You weren't there with us when we saved Celebi. Professor Oak laughed. I'm sure you haven't forgotten my first name now, have you, Professor Samuel Oak? Ash frowned. Samuel Oak. Brock quickly put the pieces together. Wait. You're the Sam that came from the past and was with us when we saved Celebi from the Marauder. Ash and Misty both gasped. while most of the others who hadn't been there during that journey were confused. "That's right, Brock. I'm the Sam that was with you for that short time. Funny how fate can bring old friends back together even across time," Oak said. "Sam," Ash said. "Ash, I've watched you grow into a fine young man who has faced many challenges and adversity, even from people as annoying as these guys." He pointed at Jesse James and Meowth. "Hey," they all shouted. "But you've always emerged victorious, or in the case of your many league challenges, earned a high place," Oak continued. "You've faced the unknown, Entei, the Marauder, and many others. You've saved the world before. And I'm sure you can do it again. But you can't do it alone. None of us can, not even someone who is deemed a chosen one." Ash chuckled as he recalled being labeled that in the Orange Islands. "I will stand with you. It's a risk, but if we wish to continue living in this world peaceful with our beloved Pokemon, then it's a risk we have to take," Professor Oak said. "You're right, Professor." Dawn agreed. Misty nodded. "Yeah. I'm pretty scared by all this, but we can't let our Pokemon be taken. Even if they destroy cities, we can't give in to them. No way I'm letting anyone else get hurt. There are a lot of pretty girls in every city and I have to protect them," Brock declared. Rebecca frowned a little bit as he said a lot of pretty girls. "I can't let my daughter be put in danger either," Anthony said, putting an arm around her. "I just got my own Pokemon a few months ago," Max said. "No way I'm gonna leave them now." "My Mimey is my only company when Ash isn't around," Delia said. "I can't imagine not having him around." "I love my Pokemon," May said. "No way I'm giving them up after all we've been through together. Might as well be giving up my dream of being a top coordinator." "All of our dreams revolve around Pokemon," Ash agreed, looking at her. "Well, our ones right now," she said with a blush. "My Pokemon are part of my family too," Norman declared. "No way I'm giving them up." "I can't be a Pokemon researcher without Pokemon," Tracy agreed. They all looked at each other. "Well, we all agree then?" Ash asked. They nodded, even Misty's sisters. "Can't put on a Pokemon show without Pokemon," Daisy said. "Guess we're gonna have to battle in this case." "All right, guys. I think it's time we take down Giovanni for good," Ash said. They nodded. "Sounds good, Ash," Brock said. "Count us in," James said. "We're not part of Team Rocket anymore, and we're letting the boss have our Pokemon. Though given our track record he might not care to have them," Jesse said before turning angry. "Still no puts me in a prison cell and gets away with it." "But how are we going to find him?" Misty asked. "Doesn't matter. We will," Ash said confidently. "We just need to try hard enough and we'll do it." "That's right," May agreed. "Give it our best shot and we'll find him and take him down. He's out there somewhere with that battleship." "Couldn't hurt to have a plan though," Max said. "I can help you find Giovanni. My psychic powers will help me see him," Sabrina said. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind for the man responsible for her parents' demise. Sabrina looked. Her mind stretching out across the region of Kanto. She saw the other cities, Pewter, Vermilion, Celadon, the ruins of Saffron, Fuchsia, Lavender Town. Then she saw it. The rocket battleship in a wooded area before Pewter City and "It's in the Viridian Forest," Sabrina said. "It's landed right now, but who knows how long that will last." "Then we need to get there and destroy it quick," Ash said. "Otherwise, Giovanni will just use it to destroy another city." "You're right, Ash," Norman said. "We'll all go." "Be careful, dear," Caroline told her husband. "I will. I'll make sure our children are safe too," Norman promised his wife. "You better stay here since you don't have Pokemon." "We love you, Mom," May said. Max nodded as his mother walked a few feet away to not be caught in the teleportation range. Max looked at her for a moment, then decided to follow. "I don't think I'll be to help you guys," he said. "I've only been a trainer for a couple months now. I'd probably just get in the way." May nodded. "You stay with Mom then." She then looked down at the small Pokemon in her arms. "Take Manaphy too." "Mama?" Manaphy asked. "It will be all right, Manaphy," May promised. "I'll come back for you soon." She passed the blue Pokemon to her mother. Caroline held him and put an arm around Max as Norman did the same with May. Delia stepped out of the group as well to join Max, Manaphy, and Caroline. She turned back to Ash, looking at him with a worried expression. "You be careful too, Ash," she told her son, I'm more worried than I've ever been before. Ash looked at her in sadness, recalling the time when he'd saved the world with the 3 orbs in the Orange Islands. I know, Mom. We lost our house and this is really dangerous. But I have to try and stop Giovanni. I know, Delia said, looking at all of his friends. You take care of my soon, and each other. They all nodded. That's what friends do, Brock said. We look out for each other. Daisy, Violet and Lily all stood there for a moment before Daisy stepped forward. I don't know if we'll be able to help. We weren't very good gym leaders and we never liked battling. But we want to help if we can, Violet said. Yeah, for our water Pokemon, Lily said. Thanks guys, Misty said. Rebecca looked at Brock. Brock, be careful, Rebecca said, looking at him. And thanks again for helping me get my father back, both times. Oh, no problem, Rebecca, Brock said with a red face. I'm happy to help. After you get back, would you care to go on a date? She asked with a blush of her own. Date? Brock repeated. Yes, nothing would make me happier, aw. All right, lover boy, we need to focus on what's important right now, Anthony said as he pulled Brock's ear. And you better be good to my daughter. Which means no flirting with other girls from now on. This caused all the others to laugh as they were all too aware of Brock's habit of doing just that. That will be hard, Brock admitted. But if I can finally get a girlfriend, I think I can do it. I'll be 100% loyal to you, Rebecca. Rebecca smiled and with her father stepped out of the group that would soon head out. Well, looks like Brock finally got a girl, Misty whispered to Ash. Yeah. Ash replied. Misty, we'll talk later, she said. I've come to a decision. So have I, Ash said. Dawn looked at the ones that weren't coming. Can you call my mom for me and tell her I love her and there's no need to worry? Sure, Dawn, Delia said. Tracy looked at Professor Oak. I want you to know that nothing has made me more happy than to be your assistant professor. Thank you, Tracy. You keep working as hard as you have. I may give you the lab someday. Oh, can we stop with this sappy goodbye stuff? Jessie said. It's time to take down the boss. Or, the former boss, I should say. You're right, Sabrina said. She began counting everyone up. Ash, Pikachu, Misty, Brock, Tracy, May, Norman, Dawn, Piplup, Daisy, Violet, Lily, Professor Oak, Jessie, James, and Meowth. That was 16. One too many, Sabrina said. I can only do 15 with Kadabra. Dawn looked at Piplup in her arms. I can put Piplup back in his Pokeball. She recalled her partner. That did it for Sabrina. Everyone ready? She asked. Ready, they all said. Sabrina levitated her Pokeball. Go Kadabra, her Pokemon appeared in a flash. Kadabra. Help me teleport them all to the rocket battleship, she ordered before turning to them. We'll get some help then, be there as fast as we can. Okay, they said. Kadabra's eyes glowed as Sabrina's also did. With their joined psychic powers, they sent the group of defenders to take down the enemy. Prepare for launch, Giovanni said in the captain's chair of the rocket. Yes, sir. The pilot in the Team Rocket black uniform said. They had stopped at one of their bases in the Viridian Forest to wait for an answer. So far it was good news. Hope was dying throughout the Kanto region. They just needed one more blow. The destruction of an important figure or multiple figures. The rocket engines began to fire up slowly. It took off at minimum speed. All the Pokemon on board were in position to launch attacks from the battleship. At that moment, Ash and all his friends and allies appeared. It's taking off, Ash exclaimed. Everyone release any Pokemon you have that can fly, Professor Oak ordered. Dragonite, go. Charizard, I choose you, Ash called, throwing his friend's Pokeball. Togekiss. Dawn called. Beautifly, May did as well. Scyther. Tracy called. Yanmega, Jessie called. Pokeballs opened and all of the flying Pokemon came out. Misty, Norman, Brock, James, and Meowth could only watch as they did not any flying Pokemon, or in one case was a Pokemon. Stop that rocket. Professor Oak ordered. Any smaller Pokemon that can get on the backs of the flyers go too. Pikachu leapt on Charizard, Meowth got on Yanmega, Piplup and Baneri were both released to get on Togekiss. May's Beautifly took her Blossom in its small arms, and Trasus Scyther was ridden by his Meryl. They all soared up into the air. Attack! Their trainers called. Thunderbolts, flamethrowers, silver wind, water gun, bubble beam, fury swipes, and other attacks all flew at the rocket battleship. But the Pokémon on board along with their team rocket trainers spotted them coming. Pokeballs containing the Zubat and Golbat emerged, and Magneton and Magnemite were there too. Supersonic and electric attacks shot at the flying Pokémon and their companions. Charizard avoided as much as he could. Pikachu shot a thunderbolt at the enemy flying Pokémon, along with Baneri's Ice Beam. But more rockets unleashed their Pokémon. May's Beautifly and Blossom were shot down by a thunderwave. Beautifly! Blossom! May cried as she ran to catch them. She did so. You two okay? She asked, Beautifly. Blossom. Her Pokémon got up and took to the air again. From in the battle rocket, Giovanni gave the command. That could be just the opportunity. Professor Oak and all those brats who have been a thorn in my side. I thought Ash Ketchum could be the key to my success by having him on my side. Now I shall make him a casualty that will crush all hope. The Pokémon fought with all their might, but there are just too many of them. The supersonic and electric attacks drove the flying types to the ground. Togekiss, Scyther, Yanmega, Beautifly and Charizard all fell along with their friends. All the trainers called their Pokémon's names in concern. Pikachu, Charizard, Beautifly, Blossom, Scyther, Meryl, Yanmega, Meowth, Togekiss, Baneri, Piplup. They saw the battle rocket above them. Giovanni watched with a victorious smile, then pressed a button. All Pokémon with Hyper Beam prepare to fire, he ordered. His voice echoed throughout all the rocket, and the opposition below heard it too. Dread washed over them. With your deaths, hope will be crushed, or close at least, Giovanni said. Get footage of this. Let all of the regions know that there is no opposing us. On board the battle rocket, a dozen hyper beams prepared to fire. It looks like this is the end, Ash said as he held Pikachu. All the others did the same as they hugged their Pokémon or friends and family for what they thought would be the last time. The hyper beams fired as everyone clenched their teeth and closed their eyes. Then something shadowy flew into the path of the hyper beams and raised its three-fingered hands, eyes lighting up. Ash expected to feel one last thing. Pain. But nothing came. He opened his eyes and saw. Looking up, he saw a purple bipedal humanoid Pokémon floating in the air. Mewtwo! He exclaimed. The most powerful Pokémon in the world looked back at him for a moment. It's been a long time, human, it said in Ash's head. What? Giovanni exclaimed at the sight. What is that Pokémon? Mewtwo looked at him, sensing his old enemy inside the rocket. I thought I had seen the last of you when I erased your memories of me. But I could not ignore the threat I sensed you posed. You have caused enough harm to both humans and Pokémon. Now I bring a force to combat you. All of Mewtwo's own cloned Pokémon appeared around Ash and his friends and allies. Ninetales, Charizard, Gyarados and many others. Giovanni along with 009, Professor Namba, and the rocket pilot inside all looked in shock. This could be difficult, Giovanni said. Well, it can't get any worse, 009 said. It did. For Team Rocket at least. Sabrina and Kadabra teleported on the scene. With them were all the other gym leaders in Kanto. Brock's younger brother Forrest. Forrest! Brock exclaimed. Hey Brock! Forrest greeted with a smile before focusing his attention on the battle. There was also Lieutenant Surge, Erica, Koga, and Blaine, as well as Agatha of the Elite Four, who was still substituting for the Viridian gym. I think it just did, Professor Namba said. No, this can't be happening, Giovanni exclaimed. Ash and all his friends stood up. Everyone come on out, Ash said as he threw his remaining Pokeballs. His friends all followed suit. Misty, Brock, Tracy, May, Norman, Don, Jesse, and James all unleashed their remaining Pokémon. Now the entire area was filled with Pokémon that stood with their trainers gazing up defiantly at the enemy. It's over, Mewtwo said as he reached out with his hand and surrounded the battle rocket in a blue aura. Mewtwo held the rocket battleship in the air, then with both hands raised, he made a motion as though he were tearing it apart, then the battleship did tear apart. The Giovanni, 009 and Namba all fell out as the part near the top where the controls were located turned upside down. Mewtwo considered simply letting his nemesis fall and his accomplices fall to their demise, but he decided against it. That would be little better than anything Giovanni would do, and there were Pokémon there as well that fell on board. Using his vast psychic powers, he caught as many of them as he could, with Sabrina's Kadabra and Sabrina herself helping to catch the remaining ones. Slowly the trio of psychics lowered all of their foes to the ground. They hit with a soft plop. Mewtwo kept the rocket battleship airborne though, and threw it out across the sky. Giovanni grunted. He had no way to escape, so it was fight. But that would be just as impossible. He'd brought lots of Pokémon onto the rocket ship, but with Ash Ketchum and all his friends standing in front of him along with the gym leaders in Kanto, all those cloned Pokémon, and one member of the Elite Four, he knew it wasn't gonna work deep down. But he couldn't accept it. No, 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 he shouted. I am the greatest trainer in the whole world. I should be the one to rule it. No one who views Pokémon as tools for power is worthy to have such power, Professor Oak said, stepping forward. The bond between trainer and Pokémon is where true strength comes from. The heart. Strength alone may be strong, but it's more potent when joined with a good heart. Something people like you will never understand. A vein popped in Giovanni's head. Attack, he shouted. All his Pokémon readied hyper beams and electric attacks. But the clone Pokémon and those of Ash and his friends ran forward. A variety of attacks filled the air, and in moments Giovanni's Pokémon were all down for the count. His anger mixed with desperation and hopelessness now. Sabrina stepped forward at Giovanni, who reached into his pocket, drawing a Pokéball. Persian, I choose. Before Giovanni could throw the Pokéball, it was pulled out of his hand and into Sabrina's waiting palm. I don't think so, Sabrina said as she glared at her parents' killer. Her eyes glowed as she took him in her psychic aura. He struggled feebly in her mental grasp. Sabrina, Ash called. You're not gonna kill him, are you? May asked fearfully. He deserves it after what he's done, Sabrina said. Maybe, but if you do this you'll be right back where you started, Brock said. As much as I want to make him pay for what he did, I think we should let the law handle it, Misty said. They're right, Norman said. Revenge is never a good cause, Professor Oak said. It is a poison that will destroy you if let it. Your parents wouldn't want this for you. Justice is the best way to handle things. Sabrina gritted her teeth. Fine. You're going to prison, then where the law will decide your fate. Mewtwo nodded in satisfaction. Sabrina brought the three villains in close to her and with Kadabra teleported them all to the Viridian City Police Center. As soon as she saw them, Officer Jenny threw them in jail. The bars closed behind them with a bang. You won't be able to buy your way out of this one, Giovanni, she promised. No judge is gonna give you a pardon. You'll be in jail for life. No, I'll escape, and I will rule the world someday, Giovanni vowed. That's never gonna happen, Jenny vowed as she walked out. Giovanni and his accomplices gazed through the bars. For a while Giovanni remained defiant, but the hopelessness of his situation slowly sunk in. He'd never have his victory now. It was over. A couple days later, Ash and all his friends were gathered back in Pallet Town with Misty's sister, Brock's family, May and Max's parents, and even Johanna. Dawn's mother had come to get here after receiving a phone call from her daughter saying that Team Rocket was defeated. The news spread widely across the regions, who also managed to fend off their own invasions. The war was over, and everyone could go back to their regular lives with catching, training, and whatever else they wanted to do. Well, that was quite an ordeal, Ash said. May nodded. It's too bad you didn't capture Mewtwo, Ash. The most powerful Pokémon would have gotten you one step closer to becoming the greatest Pokémon master. Ash chuckled. I think Mewtwo is probably happy being free. Flashback. Ash looked at Mewtwo. Hey, thanks Mewtwo. I thought we were toast until you came along. The genetic Pokémon gave a small smile. I may not trust humans, but I remember you and what you did for me when I was close to death. I could not abandon you and let that man take over the world. Then it would only be a matter of time before I and my fellow clones were found. May stepped forward. Ash told me about you. Ash looked from her to Mewtwo. You haven't met all my friends, Mewtwo. This is May and... It's a pleasure, Mewtwo interrupted. I'm afraid I cannot stay long. There are gym leaders right nearby. He motioned to the Kanto gym leaders. I have no desire to give them the chance to capture me or any of my clone Pokémon. But know that I wish you luck, my friends, Mewtwo said. I will remember you always. Ash nodded, wishing they had more time to talk, but seeing as Mewtwo had once been used by Giovanni, a former gym leader, he'd respect that. Maybe they would meet again someday. Mewtwo surrounded himself and his fellow clones in a psychic aura. Pikachu waved at Ash's Pikachu before he left, as did Meowth to Team Rocket's Meowth. Pikachu, yeah, Pikachu waved. Bye copycat. Meowth called. As quickly as he'd come to their aid in the nick of time, Mewtwo and all his clone Pokémon flew off into the unknown. Flashback end. Well, I don't need a legendary, Ash said. I have great Pokémon already, and I will become a Pokémon master someday. No matter how long it takes. Well, before that we're going to have to get a new house, Delia said to her son. Good thing you and your friends are getting a reward for your part in catching Giovanni. Ash nodded. He then looked at the ruins of their house close by. They were currently at Professor Oak's house next door. Ash and his mother would be using the guest rooms there until their house was rebuilt. Around him, Ash saw his friends and their families. Brock and Rebecca stood at one table talking with Anthony. Misty's sisters all fawned over Professor Oak while Max and Tracy were playing a game of chess. Norman and Caroline sat silently and smiled at their daughter who sat with her crush and his mother. Misty was playing with Manaphy, who would soon have to return to the Sea Temple. But for now they just wanted to enjoy themselves. They ate and stuffed their bellies, then headed into their rooms. Due to the crowd, everyone besides Ash and his mom had to book rooms at the Paladin. Misty and May were both in their own room. The water gym-type gym leader handed Manaphy back to its mother figure and smiled. Hey May, I've come to a decision that I need to tell you. Okay. What's up, Misty? May asked. Misty sighed. Well, seeing you with Ash, I think you two would be better off together. I mean, I love Ash, but he just drives me so crazy sometimes. You two get along better. I don't think it would be good for me and Ash to marry. I mean, we could fight a lot and that could lead to a divorce pretty quickly. So, he's all yours. May smiled hesitantly. You, sure? Misty nodded. I think it's for the best. Officer Jenny arrived the next day along with the president of Kanto. Ash and his friends along with Norman all stood on stage in front of a large crowd. You have defeated Giovanni, destroyed the battleship and broken the spirit of Team Rocket, the president said. For this I am proud to present you each with the Kanto Medal of Might, the highest honor our region can give. He placed the gold medal bearing a Charizard face around Ash's neck while his assistants did the same with the rest of Ash's friends. Also, we will be giving you each $1 million for your heroism. Ash smiled. That would help buy a new house for sure. We will be pardoning you for your crimes while under the hypnosis of Giovanni. We also extend that to the former Team Rocket members of Jesse, James, and Meowth, Officer Jenny said. Wherever they are. The trio suddenly revealed themselves and threw off their disguises from the front of the crowd. We're right here, but no need to prepare for trouble. We're good guys, no, so it's not double. We protected the world from devastation. And united all peoples in our nation. Can't say truth and love are too evil anymore. Or extend our reach to the stars above. Team Rocket won't be blasting off anymore at the speed of light. We'd surrender, cause we're not prepared to fight. Meowth, that's right, Ash sighed. Well, I guess that's an original motto. I guess we'll see you twerps around, Jessie said. I think we'll just get jobs and live honest lives for the rest of our days. I did say we were better at selling stuff than we were stealing long ago, James said. Bye-bye Pikachu. Meowth said. Pikachu. Pikachu waved his paw after a slight hesitation. With that, the former main trio of tormentors left. Everyone stood in front of the ruins of Ash's house for one last time, at least for a while. Well, guess this is where we all head home, Brock said as he held Rebecca's hand. It was sure a crazier time than I imagined, but like I said, no need to worry, Dawn said. It all worked out in the end. What are you guys going to do now? Daisy asked. You're coming back to the gym, right, Misty? Yeah, Misty nodded. But I do want to travel again at some point. If you guys agree to actually battle the challengers. I guess we can do that, as long as we have strong enough Pokemon like your Gyarados around, Violet said. And we can't have you be leader forever, you deserve to get out and explore the world, Lily agreed. Maybe if we can find someone that can handle losing better, he can be co-gym leader. Misty nodded. Well, I'm going back to Pewter City to work on my dream of becoming a Pokemon doctor, Brock said. And Rebecca and I are together now, so I'll have that. I'm gonna head back home to Sinnoh, Don said. I have that modeling career for Baneri to start. Then we'll see where I go from there. Well, I have to resume my journey, Max said. Maybe do some gym battles as well as catch Pokemon. I think I'll stay home for a while, May said as she held Manaphy in her arms. I love traveling, but I have missed my home, so I think I'll stay there till I'm 14. You guys can all come to my birthday if you want. I wouldn't miss it for the world, Ash said with a blush. In the meantime, I think I'll take Jenny's offer to join the police for a while. May blushed back and smiled at him. They both knew what the other was gonna say. When May turned 14, they could finally be together without fear of Jenny or anyone else getting in the way. Both felt an urge to kiss. Norman might have allowed it, but they didn't want to take any chances. Well, I know the place for me, Tracy said. At Professor Oak's lab. You'll always be able to travel whenever you need to do field research, the professor said. All of them shared a group hug as the adults watched. We've all been through so much together, Ash said looking around at them. We'll be friends forever. That's right, Misty agreed and everyone nodded. Bye, Brock said. See you soon, May said. At your birthday, Don said. In case I don't make it, happy birthday, May, Tracy said. See you guys, Max said. And so the friends from 4 different regions, or in Tracy's case, islands, went their separate ways. But soon they'd be together again. See you guys soon, Ash said with a smile as Pikachu and Tracy turned to his mother and Professor Oak. Nothing left to do but wait and work on the police training for a time. The months went by as everyone went back to their everyday lives in their own regions. Ash, May, Misty, Brock, Tracy, and Don all went back home to spend time with their families or careers. Ash helped his mom in rebuilding their house and played with his Pokemon at Professor Oak's lab in the meantime while also going through junior police training with Officer Jenny. Brock continued his dream to become a Pokemon doctor and also spent time with Rebecca, finally getting together with a girl like he'd yearned to for years. Misty returned to Cerulean Gym, taking on challenges and helping her sisters train so they could cover when she was gone. Tracy stayed at Professor Oak's lab and helped him with research and other things. May and Don stayed home with their families, training her, in Don's case, having their Pokemon model. Manaphy had also returned to the Sea Temple on the boat ride home to Hoenn. But May knew that they could see each other again, sometime. The only one not at home was Max, who returned to his journey through the Hoenn region. May's younger brother did a bit of everything, gym battles, contests, even taking pictures of Pokemon he found. He made it back home just in time for the special event. May awoke on the day of her 14th birthday. She opened her eyes and looked at her wall where she'd hung her most recent photo of herself and all her friends after they'd defeated Team Rocket for good. She held Manaphy, Ash next to her, Pikachu on her shoulder. The others all smiled at the camera. She got up and dressed, then walked out to the kitchen. Morning, May, Caroline said. Happy birthday. May smiled as she saw the table full of breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast and fruits. Ah, nothing quite beats your cooking, Mom, May said as she sat down. Well, maybe Brock. But yours is the best homemade in Petalburg, I'd say. Caroline smiled as Max came out and immediately went for the food as well. Ah, yeah, he said as he went and dove in as well. You have no idea how hard it is to cook a good meal by myself. Couldn't quite make it the way Brock or your mom could, huh? Norman teased his son. Well, can learn everything, Max said. The family ate their breakfast together, fed their Pokemon, and then Max and May went up to Max's room where they played a game on the GameCube, something they hadn't done together in a long time. Man, feels weird doing these old things again, Max said. Yeah, we spent so much time on the road we never got play these, May said. I'm glad I stayed for a while. I mean, I love traveling, but there's no place like home. Max nodded. Well, happy birthday, sis. Guess you'll be leaving on another journey with him, huh? May nodded. We've talked over the phone. He's heard of a new region called Unova and wants to try the league there. Good time too, since it's just starting. There aren't any contests there, but, well, at least I can be with him. Maybe it will help me grow anyway. One day, I will become a top coordinator. Max smiled. I believe it, sis, and someday I'm gonna discover an all-new Pokemon species or take over the gym for Dad. You do what makes you happy, Max, May said as she ruffled her brother's hair. Hey, cut it out, Max said. The doorbell rang. They're here, May said as she pressed the button to save then turned it off. She and Max went out and saw Dawn in the room with Piplup. The little penguin Pokemon walked as Dawn carried a present in her hand. Hey, May. Dawn greeted. Dawn, May ran and hugged her fellow coordinator. It wasn't long after that everyone else came at once. Ash, Pikachu, Misty, Brock, with Rebecca at his side, and Tracy, all with presents of their own. May smiled. You're all here, she said excitedly. Happy birthday, May, Brock said. Yeah, happy 14th. Misty said. Pika Pika. Pikachu jumped off Ash's shoulder into May's arms. Ah, good to see you too, Pikachu, May said as she hugged him. Ash smiled at her, blushing as he held her present in his hand. It was small with a ribbon on it. But that didn't matter. Whatever it was, she was sure she'd love it. Glad to see you, May, Ash said. Yeah, I must say you have a lovely house, Tracy said. Would you mind if I take some sketches of your Pokemon in greenhouse? Not at all, Tracy, Norman said. To start out the party, they went to the pond near the Petalburg gym and swam. They all floated on water tubes, rode their Pokemon through the water joyfully. Norman set up a barbecue of hot dogs and hamburgers while Caroline made the cake. They ate lunch then dessert and were stuffed. Now it was time for presents. She opened them one by one, getting a lot of items that could be useful in her next journey or just looked good. A new contest dress from Dawn that was a size larger than her current one. Figured you'd grow up a bit before you went to your next contest, so I thought I'd try and get you a dress for when that happens, Dawn said. May smiled. Thank you, Dawn. I'll put it in my closet and when I return to contests somewhere I'll wear it. Brock and Rebecca had gotten her a recipe book for on-the-road cooking. From her parents, a list of restaurants in the Unova region for her and Ash to check out. Misty got her a mystic water pendant for her Wartortle or any other water Pokemon she got that would make their attacks even stronger. Finally, Tracy gave her a new mini recording camera. I heard you like to sometimes act like you're on a TV show or something, Tracy said. All right, now May's expedition has a live camera, May said. Thank you, guys. Hey, don't forget mine, Ash said. I didn't, May said. I saved it for last. She knew it had to be the best, right? Looking at the small box, May unwrapped the paper and saw another box. Opening it, she looked inside and saw a beautiful sapphire necklace on a gold chain. She gasped at it. My mom helped me pick it out, Ash said, scratching his cheek. Said it looked a lot like your eyes, and I agree. Oh, thanks, Ash. I love it, May said as she got up and hugged him. Ash blushed. Well, I guess now is the time. I know we already did this kind of, but I probably have to ask to make it official. Will you be my girlfriend, May? Yes, May screamed, having been waited for him to ask that since they'd all arrived. She hugged him again, then they looked into each other's eyes, not caring that many of their friends were watching, and leaned in. Knock knock. Their kiss was interrupted by a knock on the door. Oh, who could that be? May asked. She walked over to the door and received a not entirely welcome set of guests. A girl with short red hair next to a boy with green hair in a purple vest. Brianna, Drew, May exclaimed, her eyes narrowing. May, please. Drew has been trying to reach you and explain things, Brianna said in a begging voice. May scowled at her ex-boyfriend. He'd tried calling her after the incident before she'd left Johto. She'd blocked him from her trainer call ID and hoped to never see him again. Hearing Drew's name, Norman and Ash both quickly made their way to the door. The others listened from behind. You have some nerve coming to my house after what you did to my daughter, Norman snarled. Now get off my property. I wasn't trying to cheat on you, May. I was just telling Brianna she was doing a good job, Drew said. With a rose? May asked furiously. Yes. That's just my way of being nice and offering praise, Drew said. Rose Raid produces them every so often, so I give them out. Usually to you. But I felt Brianna earned a little as well. It's true, Brianna said. He wasn't trying to cheat on you, May. He was just telling me I did a good job. May looked at them, her anger lessening. She thought for a moment and said, I believe you. But Drew, I'm already with someone else now. She took Ash's hand and he gave her a reassuring squeeze. Norman had cooled down as well, taking a deep breath and giving a neutral expression. Drew sighed. I understand, May. Me and Brianna are kind of together now as well. She helped me out when I was alone after you left. May managed as a smile as she saw her rival take his fangirl's, now girlfriend's, hand. Brianna smiled back. I hope to see you in some contests soon, Brianna said. That might take a while, May said. I'm going to Unova, but when I get back, I'm definitely gonna go somewhere that has contests. Careful you don't get too weak, Drew said, or I'll have an easy time beating you. Oh, just you wait. I'll wipe the floor with you next time, May said. They glared at each other. Then Drew chuckled and May laughed at that. Good luck. I'm glad I finally got the chance to explain, Drew said with a soft smile. I hope you and Ash have a happy life. And he and Brianna walked off, looking back with a smile. After the rest of the party was done, everyone else left to get on their ships at Petalburg port. Bye, Ash. See you soon, Brock said as he walked off with Misty, Rebecca, Dawn, Tracy, and Max. Ash, Pikachu, and May all waved as their friends left. Their ship came in tomorrow. They turned to face May's parents. Norman gave his best smile at Ash. You take care of my little girl now, Norman said. Ash nodded and shook Norman's hand. I will. He always has, Dad, May said as she clutched her new boyfriend's arm. Finally, she could call him that. I know, Norman said. I'm sure I can count on you to protect and love my daughter. Ash nodded once again. She's in good hands. Norman and Caroline smiled and nodded. We'll see you soon. Love you, May. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad, May said as she and Ash took hands and began to walk. It was sunset. Lovely. The new couple then came to a halt as May stopped. What is it, May? Ash asked, looking at her. We got interrupted last time, but I want to get this done before the day's over, May said. And finally, she kissed him. He kissed her back, wrapping his arms around her waist, and she did the same with his neck as Pikachu jumped off his partner's shoulders. Pikachu put his paws together like he had when Ash had been kissed on the cheek by either Bianca or Latias in Altmare back in Johto. Ash and May's lips parted as they looked back into each other's eyes, auburn to sapphire, just like the necklace she wore now. They then continued walking into the sunset to find a place to camp for the night. Tomorrow their new journey would begin when they got on the ferry. Who knew where it would take them in the years to come? 20 years later, Ash Ketchum, champion of the Kanto region, and winner of the World Champion Tournament for the last 10 years in a row, woke up in bed besides his beautiful wife, the top coordinator May Ketchum. Sitting up, he stretched and looked to the bedside table that showed photographs of their many memories together. Their time traveling through Unova together, as well as times before and that. He saw the younger faces of himself looking back at him, along with Brock, Misty, Tracy, Dawn and Max. He saw pictures of himself with the champion trophy, and May with her ribbon cup, his and May's wedding, her pregnant, holding their newborn child in the hospital room. Their daughter growing up. Now it was her time. Mom. Dad. I'm off. A young female voice called. I hope I'm not too late. Ash looked at his clock. It was 8 a.m. Not as late as he'd been at least. He heard running footsteps and then the door slammed shut downstairs in their Pallet Town home. May rubbed her eyes, then opened them up, revealing the sapphires inside that matched her necklace that she still often wore. Morning, Ashley leave? She asked. Yeah, off to get her Pokemon from Professor Sketchit, Ash said. Pikachu got up now from his bed next to theirs, May's Glaceon beside him and a young Eevee and Pichu next to them. Morning everyone, Ash said. Pichu, Pi, Gla, Eevee. The families smiled at each other, then got up and dressed, headed downstairs to have breakfast ready. Their daughter would find a feast waiting for her when she got home from choosing her first Pokemon. They sat outside. It was a nice summer morning and the Ketchum house was full of Pokemon that belonged to both Ash and May. Charizard, Pidgeot, Noctowl, Staraptor, Gliscor, Swellow and Beautifly flew through the sky. Ash's Tauros ran across the yard they shared with Professor Tracy Sketchit, who'd taken over once Professor Oak had passed away. They missed the dear old wise poetry man but knew that it was inevitable someday. Many of their Pokemon were in sight, except for most of the water types. Both their Venusaur, Ash's having finally decided to evolve, stood tall and proud with their two children, a Bulbasaur and Ivysaur behind them. Their water Pokémon were by the creek, or in it. Ash's Squirtle and May's Wartortle both lay in their shells. Infernape was sparring Primeape and Blaziken. Ash and May smiled as they looked out across their yard filled with their friends. Soon their daughter returned. She was a perfect mixture of her two parents. Black hair and Z-like lines on her cheeks like her father and lovely sapphire eyes like her mother. Ashley Ketchum wore her hair in a style like May did as well. Her shirt was blue and she wore a hat on her head. At her side walked a Squirtle. Her Pokémon said. Squirtle, huh? Ash said. That was my first choose back when I first started my journey. Ashley smiled as she picked up her Squirtle. This is my family Squirtle, say hi. Squirtle, it waved. Welcome to the family, May said. They and all their Pokémon ate breakfast. Then it was time for the sad part today. Now don't forget to change your underwear, Ashley, May said. I know, Mom, Ashley said. It would be gross if I didn't. She and her Squirtle began walking down the path leading north from Pallet Town. Ash and May watched with a smile as their daughter began her own journey, just as they had long ago. They held each other's hand, Pikachu on Ash's shoulder and Glaceon by May's side along with Blaziken. Their other Pokémon surrounded them as they watched proudly. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts and reviews in the comment box. Now I will see you in the next video.